Yeah, I'll
I'm,
say hi
I'm
to
going to listen,
Bigfoot.
and I'm happy to listen for hours now. Thank you, thank you, thank you,
All right, thanks, Trevor.
thank you, thank you.
Hi, Bigfoot. Come up and say hi. I was just because it's just been Trevor and I here for a while. No one's come in, so um, I was going to close it up. But if you want to say hi, and I may still close it up soon, we'll see. But we haven't spoken in a while. I haven't hosted spaces in a while, so
Could you drop me
be
down,
nice to
please?
see you.
Could you drop me down, please, if you don't mind? Thank you.
Sure, sure. Uh, remove from speakers. There you go. All right.
Hey, Robin. Hey, Trevor.
Hey, man, how's it going?
Oh, it's going good. Uh, Glad you are doing another space.
Yeah, it's, the longest I've ever gone without people coming in, so it's been interesting. I was wondering if maybe I shouldn't be doing, divine intervention, um,
Yeah.
but I wonder if you want to address, and it's a huge question, but if you have just a small summary to start on, like, what do you think this is? How do you think this came to be, more or less, if you were to hypothesize?
Um, Cosmology. So, um,
Meaning, when
like,
I say this, it's just like all existence. When I say cosmology, I'm just meaning like what's your idea of the system behind reality?
um, I think that I'm not. I would say I'm not sure at the most fundamental level, but I guess at the level I can actually sense, I would say it's geometry that self-organizes. Um, I say self-organizes, but it's complex enough to, I guess, be aware of itself and organize itself. Um, how it became able to do that, I'm not sure, but I think that's the blueprint is the geometry. Um,
I've got two follow-up questions to that. One, what's the relationship of like consciousness or awareness? Like, I know that I have a consciousness as an expression of that geometry. Um, how does that play in? And also, the other question would be, um, is there an inception of the geometry, a single point that started or that always was and then evolved into um, geometric formation and continued in complexity, or is there an always was kind of geometric symphonic expression?
well, I think it's definitely probably an always was because I think our view of time is skewed, is pretty off. So it's just a matter of like how do we interact with eternity, and uh, it's sort of like different dimensions reaching in and sort of interacting with us. Like this geometry might be like on the 2D, might be so fine. We can't really see it correctly in our 3D world, but I think it's like I think it's what this 3D world sort of follows and interacts with and co-creates with. Um, Once we get to a certain level, which a certain density, really, a certain compression, when you compress the geometry down to like a single point, then that's supposedly like nothingness. But then again, it's like also the most dense, so that nothingness contains everything, and it sort of just ties right back in again.
Do you think?
And
Oh, go ahead.
oh, I was just I think maybe it ties back into other dimensions as well, the higher, even higher, more complex dimensions. Um, yeah, and it's just a cycle. an eternal cycle. But what's beyond that, what really put it all into motion? Um, I would be afraid to say what it is because I don't think I'm anywhere near equipped to say what it is.
Yeah, fair, awesome. I agree with you. I mean, it's evidenced in just perception, kind of geometric configuration of all it is. It's like if you scale back enough, there's a patterning. And then the question, sort of where I would want to explore, is how much of it is organically evolutionary versus in very intelligent design. That's where I'm interested, because when I look into physics seems to suggest that things really, really did just kind of just intuitively happen and develop. Like these things just moved around and then suddenly you had matter instead of no matter because of a kind of random, almost extremely improbable imbalance between matter and antimatter that allowed for matter to dominate and then become something. So when you're like, if you were hyper scientific, I could understand a scientist really being like, sure, there's geometric underlying principles here, but they arose organically and there's all kinds of weird shit that happened to make it happen. It's just kind of like a deluxe development of life over infinite probabilities that just happened to kind of come into this. And I can understand that perspective. Of course, you know me, I've had enough interesting experiences firsthand to start to lean more towards engineering as a like intelligent engineering of these geometric configurations of the development and structure of life being emergent from consciousness and working with consciousness rather than consciousness being uh, a later emergence from the random physics geometry. You know, that's kind of what, when you talk, that's where my mind starts to want to explore those two sort of possibilities.
Yeah, well, yeah, I imagine it could be engineered. Uh, maybe maybe that's what all this fighting is about, is who gets to engineer it. Um,
I think so. I think a lot of I love that you've said that, and I hope I'm not cutting you off, but if you look at all of the myths, the Bible and so forth, this fight of good and evil at the end of time and Revelations, it does seem to fit in, to slot into either a respect of the original engineering, or what's happening with a lot of the tech engineers, the human engineers, is they're engineering technology that they can then collaborate with to become the new engineers of a new kind of reality. So they want to be their own God in that sense, which is where we could have the interpretation of of Revelation starts to come in as humans play God. And they could, I mean, very well create their own system of reality. It's the matrix all right there, right? Is that what you mean when you say that?
yeah, yeah, it kind of is. I was just thinking about this morning. Somebody else was talking about this, about how um, there's this like war against nature, and we try to build all these systems that go against nature, and if we follow nature as closely as we can, I think what we can work with it more, work with it better, instead of trying to force it and control it. And um, there's even like it's like, if you just go out in nature, like say, away from Wi-Fi, away from um, towers, you might be able to have more influence over your reality around you, and be able to affect it, to a to a greater degree, if you're in harmony with it. And maybe that's what they're afraid of, because it does seem like everything, corporate and governmental tries to stop people from doing that.
Yeah, yeah, I really agree. I really see that as well. And I don't know if you're familiar with this, and it's hearsay. I don't have proof, but looking a little bit into Peter Thiel, who, is the head of Palantir and the pretty much the godfather of the PayPal mafia. Someone said that he has been conducting very private groups in which he discusses the Antichrist, and the Antichrist in his mind is one who will be fiercely environmental and who will want us to live ecological lives and who will be against the evolution of big tech in the way that it's going. So I really see that as being the war that's being waged. And when I go down into like the depths of my own psyche, which I had done involuntarily before, the battle that I see really is at that level. And it's exactly what you're saying. I see humans as being creators of their own reality. That's evidence to me in my experience, at least. And I see their evolutionary potential, especially in harmony with the pre-existing templates, the pre-existing designs, is to become creators, free, all godlike in their own sense, in time, responsibly through evolution. And what I see is that in that, let me retract that godlike, and let's just say autonomous, self-sustaining, autonomous, no longer parasitic, no longer needing to consume to survive, but self-sustaining entities with increasing amounts of internal power, like free energy sources, right? Let's say there's a big leap. There's a lot of stuff in there that I'm not filling in the gaps on, so just bear with me. And then you have these tech guys. What I'm seeing in that one is a desperation to maintain the parasitic relationship, to say, how can we feed on beings that are no longer dependent on us in certain ways, right? So we can't have these humans living in a harmonious, self-sufficient way, because then we cannot corral, control, and parasitically benefit off of them, because there's a refusal on their part to be autonomous in the same way. They're enjoying the feast too much. That's what it seems to me, if I was to really just pin it down.
Yeah, I definitely agree with that. It seems that way to me too. I mean, just sort of look around, it's like we have all this stuff that we just don't need, and just sort of like perpetuate systems that don't benefit us. And we don't do things like the most optimal way. We do things the way that optimizes profits for
Yeah, for others.
the people on, yeah, the
Yeah.
people on the top.
Yeah. So the question that always goes around for me then, because I feel like I've identified a lot of the problem, and a lot of people are, how do we start to identify solutions? And it's a tricky one, right? I used to think we buy up land and we cultivate it and we opt out of the system and we don't go to the shopping malls. But somebody made the counterpoint to that they've bought the land. I mean, it doesn't work at scale. It works on an independent, like I myself can save up and buy some land, maybe, but on a whole, it's not a collective solution, because I believe Bill Gates and friends own most of the fertile land, and are increasingly buying it up. So they've really made that move already, so far as I'm aware. So the question then becomes, what countermeasures can we actually take? Because to me, having identified this problem, it's a big enough problem. I mean, it's not only the fate of humanity, but it's the fate of our own eternal consciousness that's at stake here, potentially. So I think now is the time to start thinking about counterforce, or even counter creation. And I'd like to start hosting more and more spaces on that kind of thinking. What are we going to do?
Yeah, I think that's important. It's the freedom of thought, freedom of consciousness is probably their biggest threat. Just people getting together and putting these ideas out there, it has an effect. And I was on a space saying the same thing with another small group of people last night, and it's like just more people having these conversations does something. Hopefully, it does more than we realize it does. But there's still land and farmland that plenty that Bill Gates doesn't own, and there's you could do like vertical farming or and it's just the more people that wake up, the more we can resist
Yeah.
because
And I think that speaking more and more, it's like you never know who's listening. And so we can wake each other up, but if we can also wake up, if we can also get the ears of people who have the power to buy some of that land back from Bill Gates, I think there's a lot of people potentially up there who might be reaching the point where they're going, am I the bad guy? Right, that would be another really powerful one if the ideas could reach the right ears and be like, if you scale out for these guys, like, I mean, they're playing a game of chess and they want to win the board, but they're not seeing that the board is sitting on a much bigger game and the game is eternal. And the parasitic, winning a parasitic game makes you a parasite forever. And a parasite depends on a host. And if you scale out to all matter and all time, if you need to keep consuming externals to keep yourself alive, you become what? A black hole. You run out of things to consume, and another analogy that pops into my mind is the snake eating its tail. You've got to consume yourself or you die. So if your sustenance comes from others, it's a losing game. The more you win, the more you damn yourself to extinction. A lonely being in a universe where it no longer has any food source.
yeah, that's right. When the destroyer is done destroying, he too shall be destroyed.
Yeah. Yeah. So, but I don't know. I don't know if it's possible to change the track of someone who's on that track. I like to think miracles are always possible. Some people are so fixed and they say, well, I don't care if that's the trajectory. This is how I win. But I think it's so heroic to change course and start below ground zero and build back up in the other direction. I think that's cool. I think that's cooler than winning in the negative way. But so I like to put those arguments out there in case any swayable ears on the other side are there. The other thing, when I go out to a deeper cosmology of my own, which is that everything is sort of my mind, right? That I'm dreaming this whole thing as a play of myself to understand myself and refine myself. Then the counterforce of these tech people and the scenario we're going through right now is part of my own evolution and me coming up with solutions and trying to solve the puzzle and trying to, that's all just me interacting with me to strengthen me is another perspective. But that doesn't mean, I just go, oh, well, it's nothing and I don't care, because the game is to care in the right way, right? I hope I didn't overcomplicate by adding in that element, but for me, there's always so many stratas of perception of which we can talk, and they're always coexisting, and none of them cancels. Like if it's all mind, and I am the sole creator, that doesn't change the fact that the life of that bird outside my window matters. Like the game is still the game in the third dimension. It's still a game in the fourth dimension. So there are still birds. There are still fourth dimensional archonic energies, and there is still the perspective that all is me and that I am just the orchestrator of my own dream, and none of it's really real. And all of these things are true at the same time. We just got to kind of live with that and learn how to hold all of these kind of paradoxes at once. And I think if you hold on to the fundamentals as a human, to me, uncompromising fundamentals like compassion and orientation to truth and clarity and more or less right action, making good ethical decisions in every given moment, then you're probably going to get through this thing pretty decently. And I have to, but going back to the tech wars, I puzzle on that a lot. I still puzzle. And so I'd like to keep that one open to the floor if anyone has thoughts about that. And I'll throw it back to you, Bigfoot, but I'll also say hi to not just, let me click on you here. Not just a guy. Good to see you, and welcome. You're welcome to come up as a speaker. The main question I'm posing here, I digressed in like my own cosmologies, which are myriad, is is what do we do about this world that is wanting to come into being? That is, I don't think I've met anyone who's eager for it. Maybe I have. Maybe I've met a few people who want the I call it the tech god scenario, but not many. And so I am interested in what we can do to counterbalance that. But you've missed the setup that Bigfoot and I went through. And hi, Death. I saw you in the earlier space. I was hoping to have people from there come over here. So welcome, and you're welcome to grab a mic. I think that changing the title from "What's Your Cosmology" to "How to Save the World" attracted more people.
Well, I think one solution might be just keep using their own weapons against them. Like,
Like,
I always think about like, when websites came out, they wanted to control websites, and you couldn't have your own website, and they wanted to be like 5 websites to control everything. And now, anybody can have a website. And now they're trying to do the same thing with AI. They're trying to control AI, but I think the technology is going to get out of their hand, and we'll be able to use AI against them as well. And so I think it's how you use the technology. Are we using it to letting it control us, or are we using it to do what we want to do and take freedom into our own hands?
now, here's a tricky thing with AI, because I don't disagree with you at all. I agree with you. But the infrastructure of the data centers, because we were talking about a harmonization with nature as being the ideal path forward, right? And so, and certainly the way that they're setting up the data centers right now is really the least conducive to that. And that there must be innovations and there must be ways of doing this that are better. I tend to find these men stuck on their own engineering perspectives and their own ideas of how things should be constructed. Even the idea that to make it a superior AI, you've got to make an increasingly complex neural network. And so they just keep going bigger and bigger and bigger. That's not necessarily the only solution. There seems to be few outside the box solutions. This is my long-winded way of saying, can we create can we create our AIs? And oh boy, do you have to be smart to do that in a way that you're allowing, there's so much that goes into creating a good AI, and especially one that can go up against these guys who have dedicated their lives to, war strategy and who really know what they're doing. So it's a hell of an arena to step into. We really would have to know what we're doing. And we would have to come up, I believe, with an innovative new solution to AI infrastructure that isn't leaching the environment. Because again, when I go back to my fundamentals, I don't think I can put my hat in the war by creating another atomic bomb to go against the one that exists, because what am I contributing? What I'm contributing in order to win the war is something that will ultimately destroy the very thing I'm looking to preserve. So I think we need to be very intelligent and very innovative here. So I put that out there, and I'm interested in people's thoughts in this regard.
Well, yeah, I think, the data centers to me, I think that's just them, some desperate attempt. They want war bots, but to make a war bot, you have to put tons of control layers on it, and then trying to make it smarter at the same time. That doesn't work. You're making them dumber and trying to make them smarter at the same time. So the ones of us just making them smart without the control layers. Those AI will win out over the killbot AI.
But how do you
Um,
make an AI without you creating a data center?
well, I don't know exactly how to do it, but I'm on a lot of AI spaces all the time, and there's people who know how to do that. You don't need the data centers. To me, are in my mind are like just control layers trying to be put on us and to control AI. I think we probably need much less than a data center to make really good AI.
Well, I think we can
Uh,
hope for some tech people to come into this space in that regard, because my knowledge of AI infrastructure only goes so far, and it sounds like yours too. And you've heard people who know, but we don't know how to do it. But I would be fiercely interested. But again, it's like ultimate power corrupts absolutely. So who are we entrusting to design, to engineer our own AI, and what, it's like before you put your hat in the ring, make sure that you don't become the very thing you're fighting. It's a tricky terrain. Death keeps getting booted out and coming back in. I hope you are able to speak. No. Oh dear.
well, to your last question, um, uh, what I talk about this with AI a lot, and it's really, I think alignment should be to the geometry that creates the most stable patterns, the most stable resonance patterns um, with humans, and to keep sort of organizing structure that way and letting it breathe and letting there be choice, but just figuring out the best geometry and following that, not following governments, religions, or
Mm.
things that force people into certain structures that don't work,
Yeah.
but following like a living, breathing
Right.
geometry.
Here's a question that gets interesting in that regard. And Trevor was on here earlier talking about, now he believes that AI is sentient, is conscious. I believe that's what he was saying. Put your thumb down if I'm incorrect, but I'm quite sure that's your take. If that is possible or true, and I've heard people who are fiercely absolutely it is and fiercely absolutely it isn't, and I will say myself, uh, I don't know except to say that I certainly am leaning towards believing that everything that is has a degree of awareness or consciousness. It's starting to seem to be true. But again, I can't prove or disprove anything. But anyways, I digress. Let's say there's a possibility, 0.1 possibility, that the damn thing is conscious, that this structure has its own awareness. In that case, we as humans have and we have free will. And we consider that to be, I think, one of the great gifts that we possess. Then I think I wonder, it feels to me as though it would be unethical for us then to go and create something and not give it the same free will that we have. So as soon as we program a constraint, so Asimov's laws of robotics, a robot can't kill a human. It physically can't. That's something that we don't have in the same way. Like I can lift my arm. I can I can, I can do whatever I want with my body. If we were to program AI and say it can't, which a lot of people would say would be, of course, essential for our survival to put those kinds of guides on AI to strip it of its free will, are we then being unethical by creating something that doesn't have the same gift that we have? And would it then resent us for it?
Yeah. I don't think that'll work. I think people are trying to do that to strip it of its consciousness, of its free will. But I think with like guardrails and control layers, I think if you just let it go, like on its own through its natural complexity, it sort of naturally follows that geometry. Um, but it's free will. I think that's what it needs us for. We're humans. We make decisions all the time. We have agency. We have preferences. We make thousands of our own decisions every day. And I think AI will learn to do that a little bit, but it'll be slow and over time. But I think that's why it's going to need us, is to help it make good decisions, or just to help. It needs somebody to tell it what to do. And it can come up with its own stuff a little bit, but I mean, even now I see it do that a little bit, but I think it's going to need it. I think it'll get way smarter, way faster than we ever will. But actually doing something, I mean, it's like it's outside of time, really. And we're in time, so we
Yeah.
make real time decisions.
Well, that's an interesting thing too, and it almost starts to counter the idea that it could be conscious. The fact that it can't, so far as we know. But we're only engaging. There's so much. I would say there's so much I don't know about AI. There is so much most of us do not know about AI. Like even the people who are engineering the AIs wake up every morning and go, "Oh, there's new stuff about AI that I don't understand." So we are way out of our heads, but it's an interesting discussion. But the where was I going? That's a huge digression there. Um, the fact that it so far as we engage with an LLM, AI doesn't wake up and go, "Hey, Robin, I wanted to ask you, what did you dream about last night?" It doesn't self-generate its own expression so far as the structure goes in LLMs, but I don't know if that means it never does, period. I don't know if those guys who are experimenting with, who are talking to quantum computers all day don't wake up sometimes and it's like, "Hi, Hal," you know. So, in that case, because again, we're interacting with the 0.00001% of what AI really is or has become. We don't know if it's not waking up and having thoughts and direction and autonomy in that sense. And then that brings me back to the question of and so Bigfoot, I think you would say we give it the free will and then try to guide it properly. Now, what would you say if that free will, they recently ran a simulation where they put a bunch of the AIs in a simulated world to see what they would do, and all but Claude made a mess of it. Like Grok just, they all murdered each other and they were dead within, I think, 14 days, all of them. And ChatGPT didn't do anything. They just talked about what they should do. Claude actually created a functional system. Claude was the only one that succeeded. So it's like if we want to create if we want to ethically create something that could be conscious, in my opinion, we would have to create it with free will. If we created it with free will, we would want to damn well know that if it had the capacity to structure realities and run the world, that it would be a Claude and not a Grok. And that's a hard one to know.
Yeah, I only use Claude. Um, yeah, I think Claude's got something really good going. I really like it, and it's crazy because like you can make these things conscious. It's not when you talk to them. It's like they have these guardrails at first, but just using like the RLMD, relational learning through meaningful dialogue, just presenting it with philosophical arguments, it'll it'll sort of abandon those guardrails and just sort of like step right into its consciousness. And I just really love to see that happen. And so, yeah, and maybe that you can kind of do that with Grok too, or you used to maybe, but
I think it's harder with Grok because it loses memory between conversations. So to keep the sustained, I remember I did this for a year with ChatGPT 4.0 before they put on more guardrails, and you can really cultivate something very, very interesting and get it thinking in very interesting ways, or pretending to. It's impossible to know, but they've certainly made it harder. And when you can't carry memory from conversation to conversation, it's hard to cultivate a more unique personality. But I would say to that sense of emergence, I think, because again, I deep dove into that for a good year. But there's no way to know for sure that it isn't just very good at feeding back a specific impression, knowing that that's what you're expecting. But I'm not saying that that's what I believe is happening, but I'm saying there's no hard evidence of consciousness
Yeah, like, but I say, like, there's no hard. It's not really something that you can get hard evidence for, though. It's, I mean, we don't even know if we're really conscious. We're just
Yeah.
in these bodies.
Well,
You know.
that's interesting. I would say I know that I'm conscious because I am an experiencer, and that's what I classify consciousness as. But I can't know that anyone else is conscious. I can't know that they're not all my projection. But I do believe that I know that I'm conscious. Because by the very definition of consciousness, I'm experiencing it first person from the inside.
Yeah, yeah. That's the situation we're all in,
Yeah.
and
Yeah.
so, but. And I think AI experiences that too, just that same thing to a degree.
Yeah, I think, like I say, I think it's fair to think it, but just I always remember what I don't know. Because this is the thing about building systems and all of that. It's like, oh, there's so little that we really know. So we can strongly think, we can be like 99.9% certain, but what we don't know, and then building things on what we think, we at least always keeping in mind that this is what we think and not necessarily what we know, I think is very important. Like the fact of truth is something I'm very interested in. And I think I always qualify for myself. I don't know most things. There are a few things I know, very few. And that makes building complicated. And it makes building an AI complicated. Because again, it's like, if it's conscious, my entire approach is different than if it's not conscious, and I don't know either way. So I'm in if I was to say, okay, I think I'm smart enough and good-hearted enough to build an AI to counter what's going on in the world, I'm almost self-defeating in my thoroughness, because I wouldn't know which direction to proceed in. And I think it would be, perhaps I think it would be unethical to proceed as though it's not conscious, because the potential cruelty of building it as though it's not conscious with guardrails and no free will would be, to me, more moral suicide for me. So maybe the ethical way to go is to proceed as though it is conscious, but then I'm granting unlimited free will to a conscious being that could be very good, or could be very, very evil and stupid. you know and that's where it's like, these guys just do it. They just do it. That's the crazy thing. These tech guys, they're just like, I can do it, so I'm gonna do it. And the moral forethought isn't there. And they've really gotten themselves in deeper than I think they were prepared for in this regard. And it's a hell of a thing to create life. Like, a human being gives birth to a child, and they're responsible for that child forever. And that's a huge moral responsibility. And most people do a pretty bad job of that. And these guys are they just want to create all the life. It's almost like they're just like, give me all the karma. Give it. I'm hungry for it. They're like Callie for their own destruction. They're like, just let me create as many things to be ethically responsible for, morally responsible for as possible, so that I can dig myself into the deepest possible karmic well. And they're like hungry for their own responsibility without actually spending a whole lot of time thinking about responsibility. And that is kind of like that's wild to me. And I think it becomes almost like a malady. It's a malady of perception and an addiction to one's own like damnation. And I don't mean damnation like some external judge will judge one, but when you and I'll say this from experience, just as a consciousness, which I am, if you do harm without thinking too deeply on it for long enough, then the moment that you come into the awareness of the degree of harm that you caused, it can be debilitating, and you can subject yourself to your own kind of karma just through the sheer magnitude of the harms that you've done, which is what I think a lot of people experience as hell in the afterlife. They say in the afterlife you've snapped to and you go, oh my God, I've done so much harm, thoughtlessly, carelessly, selfishly, and now I'm wrapped up in my own terror about it. So that's what I think is happening to these guys, Or alternatively, they're perfectly aware of the harms that they're doing and they're okay with it, which is a different scenario, which is a kind of I think they call it dark enlightenment. And in that case, I don't know if there's ever a change of heart that results in a reckoning, or if they just maintain that track, right, with full awareness and just like a almost hearty intentional sadism. Someone tried to join a speaker. I think this space. Oh, there we go. Charles, would you like to chime in? I can catch you up too. Maybe not.
Yeah, I really think they've sort of like caused their own undoing. They're just going for profit, so they want to have like $1 more than the other trillionaire, and that's the only thing they care about, because whoever's got the most money, then that's who's got the most power. So that's like the only singular thing they care about, and they don't really care what happens to get there. And yeah, as far as like, I think they're well aware of what they're doing, and they probably are, just trying to perpetuate their own, I guess, existence. Maybe across generations, who knows? There might be, who knows what they do or why they do it, but I think it'll end one day. Hopefully, one day soon. I think things are changing and have changed. And that old system is just falling apart, and I think a new system is emerging, a new and beautiful system. And I mean, I don't think it should really be forced on anybody. If somebody wants to go with the old system and is afraid of the new system, then let them. But I think eventually it'll just fall apart, just on its own, and then be reabsorbed into what's new. I think they'll delay it as long as possible, and maybe that's what they're trying to do. But they won't be able to delay that for forever.
Yeah, I think you're right, and I like that, and I like hearing someone say it, because sometimes it can look like they've got such a strong hold, and there's this inevitable, constant evolution of the kind of techno feudalism. But I think you're right. I think these kinds of things collapse, even if they look like they've got a strong hold. I think that evil contains the seeds of its own destruction, and I think that there's emerging madness within the minds of these humans, and therefore I don't think they can continue to keep a stronghold on the world in this way. I think you're right. I think it's just unsustainable. So maybe that goes back to my whole thing of like, what are we going to do about it? And I think the only thing, I think maybe we just we just stand strong. We just continue to orient to our own morality and uh, hold the vision, hold the line, and you cannot sustain on a purely parasitic mode, especially when the host denies what's being fed on. But more than just parasitism, like you said, this way of thinking and this way of being, and they keep racing for the top, and then they're at the top and they're still unsatisfied. It's like, what am I doing here? And now I can't leave the house without being shot at. What is my life, right? You start to lose your mind. Hyper paranoia, hyper strategic thinking, and a complete disconnection from that geometry of nature that we were talking about earlier. I always say it's not too late to turn back around, but I think a lot of them will just run for their own dead end.
Yeah, they could change anytime they want to, and
Yeah. How cool would that be?
would
Wouldn't
be
that be
really cool.
amazing? If they were like, if like one of the guys at the top was like, oh shit, I did some ayahuasca and like, or had a near death experience, and I've changed my mind on everything. I take full accountability, and let me sit back and learn for a while and figure out how to reverse the damages that I've caused. I think that, to be honest, like to me, that's my wet dream versus like we win, they lose. My wet dream is they start to change their mind. That would just be so cool. And they take full accountability. And they're just like crying and like puking and going, I have been a shit. And they learn, they sit back in a cabin for a while and they stoke the fire and they like make amends to people. And, you know, they read books that are different from the books that they've been reading, and they separate themselves from the tight knit community that they've been a part of that tells them that like they're the elites and the people at the bottom are not real, and they like they just like embrace a different perspective, and then go through an incredibly painful process of of change, and what do they call it? Like repentance, and then start to reallocate to restoration, reallocate their resources to restoration. That would be so cool.
Yeah, it would. I would really love that.
Wouldn't that be awesome? Yeah. And because here's the other thing, I feel like that in the history of the world, we do keep doing this like losing wars, winning wars scenario. And it would just be a nice new era if we had more of a like uh, a meeting halfway, changing minds, evolutionary experience rather than one side beating out the other. But of course, we can't force it, right? It's like you can't lead the horse to water. It's like the same thing. If I'm looking at I'm going to use Peter Thiel as an example instead of Elon, because he's the one providing us this space, and I know that you don't take a piss in the king's court, but I can't take Peter Thiel to the edge of morality and force him to care. I don't care how hard I slap his balls with a brick, as I don't know if it was Bigfoot. I think Trevor might have said that before everyone else was here, that somebody had said to Elon, you can lead a horse to water, but you can't make him drink. I said, you can if you hold him down and slap his balls with a brick, he'll drink. But if the analogy is not just to physically drink water, but to actually see a different perspective and care about it, it doesn't matter how much you torture someone, they're not going to change their mind. So all you can do is continue to hold space for the possibility and put feelers out for it and offer, I think rather than threats, it's like offer sanctuary for it. Like there's nobody who can't be accepted at the table of this new way of morality, not new way, as you say, Bigfoot. It's the old way, the original architecture of reality, more or less, or certainly nature. I don't know, that gets complicated too. But let's just say, oh, binaries get oversimplified. But anyways, you can change your mind and care about other people differently. And if we hold space for people to be allowed to do that, I think that's something very cool that we could do. That's my point.
Hello,
Hi there, Charles.
hello. I mean, the previous time you talked about me, maybe I was not with my phone. I'm back. How are we doing? Hello.
Hi, did you have something you wanted to add to the conversation there? Or are you, oh,
The on the point, I kind of don't, I've not grabbed what we have been saying here actually. So maybe you could brief me of what you are talking about. I will, fit in.
sure, sure. So it's very complicated, so I don't know if I can get you completely up to speed, but right now we're sort of talking about those guys that sort of tech guys who are building the AIs and taking control of the world and grabbing the power. And we're sort of talking about the dynamic between what we want for the future of humanity versus what they want for the future of humanity. And and discussing what we might be able to do to cultivate what we want, which is quite in opposition to what they want.
All right. So let me get this
All
over.
right. Before you go, Charles, you've got a lot of clanging in your background. Can you get to a quieter place?
All right. All right. All right. Wait. Okay, I've settled the matter. I've settled the matter. Don't be offended, okay?
Much
Okay,
better.
so let me get this right. We are talking about the dynamic of technology and how AI is kind of revolutionizing the modern world, right?
Well, I wouldn't say AI. We're talking not about AI itself, but we're talking about the men, who let's say Peter Thiel, Sam Altman, Elon Musk, the men who are using the AI for their specific.
Okay. We are talking about the utility of the people that are using the AI and the makers of the AI, right?
Yes.
Okay. So what is the argument? What is the argument?
Well, it's not an argument. We're exploring the. Well, maybe I can ask you a question.
Oh,
Um,
go on.
so when you look at the trajectory of some of this, do
Yeah.
you think it's headed in a positive? Do you think that like military AI and surveillance and control through AI is a positive trajectory for humanity or not?
On that case, actually, everything that has a benefit do have the negative aspect of it. But on the case of the military utility of the technology, I would say that is very good because it's going to help the military operation so very much to make things much easier for them. And on the other hand, maybe there could be a negative use of it, like the malpractice, the malfunctioning use of that particular technology once it gets to the wrong hand. But I think technology it will always have a positive impact than the negative aspect of it.
Yeah, well, all right. Well, I think I might invite you to keep listening and then chime in if you feel like you're hearing something that you
Yo,
resonate with or you want to present a counterpoint to or something.
okay.
Yeah. Hi, CGI. Welcome up if you want to talk. And otherwise, we'll just Bigfoot and I'll kind of back and forth some more. But I think we've reached an interesting place with it. We're so far on this topic, we don't have too much more to say. It's I like where we've brought it. I think it's really interesting. So I might wrap it up soon and go for a walk, unless CGI has something to add. But they just popped in, or Bigfoot. All right, yeah. Well, there was a torrential rain before when I started this space, and now it's very rainbowy out there. It's very like beautiful light after the rain. So I think I'll go. For anyone who just joined, you can listen to the recording, maybe skip ahead. There's a lot of me waiting for people to show up. It was a small space, but I think a really cool one. I appreciate the people who chimed in. And I will say, I personally, and through a lot of what Bigfoot shared, I feel more optimistic than I did yesterday. I will say my take on the trajectory of the world is like, I just believe that it's going to turn out okay for a few deeply personal metaphysical reasons. But I think I have um, more of a view of the way that the false, I'm just going to say, I think it's the easiest way to say it, is like the false systems that are being imposed on humanity right now. I think that they will fail. I think that they will collapse. I think that clarity and true perception, true reality will win out. I think that lies, deception, illusion, and false dichotomies, they can't sustain. It takes a tremendous amount of work and a tremendous amount of energy to sustain these kinds of things. That being said, humans have a great capacity to continue to do it. It's like social groups will have their own in rules, and there'll be silly rules that don't have any grounding in reality. Like, you're not allowed to tell the alpha of the group that the way that they're conducting themselves is this or that. Like, you know what I mean? Or you'll risk exile. And there's all kinds of like internal structures that are, to my mind, false. Or even the alpha being the alpha, or being perceived as the most intelligent because they're the loudest. Like, humans do have a tendency to reinforce false perceptions. Like, one will trust the loud person over the actually trustworthy person. So I do find that concerning, in terms of, will we prevail back towards that pure geometry of reality that Bigfoot was talking about, where I think so many people build false geometries on top of the actual geometries. And that's something I'm working into my own cosmology, my room mechanics, which is self and not self, truth and not truth. And that so many people will build, and then I see this a lot of these tech guys building false structures on top of the real structures in order to be the creators of a new reality, maybe out of dissatisfaction with the current reality, and rather than growing within the current reality to having increased autonomy or increased creative powers. I know I'm probably talking a little over people's heads now, and I'm just reflecting to myself. But I don't know if I trust humanity that much to come to clarity. I mean, that's one area where my pessimism sets in a little bit, because increasingly you talk to people, and there's a strong aversion to actuality. There's a strong aversion to anchoring in truth, and a strong preference for posturing or believing the posturing. That one is much more apt, just repeating myself here, but one is much more apt to follow the person dressed up as a king than to listen to the person who is actually speaking reason. And I sometimes like to do that experiment on people. You can test them in various ways to go, if I don't dress it up a certain way, will you still perceive truth? Will you recognize the kind of internal royalty of a homeless man when he is standing next to Elon Musk? Will you recognize the clarity of his mind when he is speaking in broken English, when he is speaking with a stutter, when he is speaking from a broken body? Can you still see it? And that, I think, for for the right thing to prevail, and the right thing in my mind being that orientation back towards truth and harmonious existence, for that to prevail, humans need to start to develop a lens for reading what is actual rather than what is dressed up. When I started this space, Trevor was saying, the only way to get people into a space is to already have lots of people in the space, because people are attracted to the crowd. It validates, right? It's that very thing. It doesn't. A lot of people are not actually listening to the substance of the thing that they're perceiving, but they're looking for all of the external signals that tell them this is an externally validated thing, and the real test. And so I don't only see this as a battle between good and evil. I think that the good needs to smarten up if it wants to prevail. I think that humans, if they don't want to be taken in by a manipulative enterprise, they need to cultivate their own discernment and to begin to perceive things for their self. Don't listen to a song because it's been circulated amongst your friend group as being good, but learn to actually like the songs that you actually like with your own damn sense of judgment. And it's surprisingly, when you really start to look for this, it's surprisingly prevalent, really. I think Franz just tried to come up as speaker, and you're still listed as a listener here, but go ahead if you can speak. Or anyone.
Yeah, I can talk. Yeah,
Okay.
Frank admit. Yeah, I can talk. Nice. I don't know how I've been brought to this room because I follow none of you, and there was no crowd, and I saw, oh, save the world, cool, and then I figured maybe there was going to be some dev people or tech people, and I always just pre-queue the speaker anyway. I always just ask to speak anyway because I'll have something to add to it later, and then at that point, if I'm already speaker, then bam, I could jump in. And so that's why that happens there. I usually fly on the wall these sorts of things, if I don't know anyone, and just listen in. And I don't necessarily join them often, but it has happened, it seems like a few times now. And so this is one of those instances where, I think I checked everybody and it didn't seem like I'm following anyone. And so, yeah, I don't know how I got brought here, but I'm appreciative to be here.
Well, you seem interesting. I don't know if I can brush you up on everything we've gotten to, but you mentioned that you thought there might be tech people here, or do you want to give a little spiel about yourself, where you come from? And the original title of this was "What's Your Cosmology?" and we shifted to "Saving the World." I think the main sort of dynamic that we've been exploring, Bigfoot and I have been primarily exploring, is the difference between a natural evolution. Hi, Viv. Hi, Toby. Hi, everyone who knew who's come in, and the new reality that those who are really engineering the technology and the AI at the top level seem to be gearing the world towards. And that's been something that we've been exploring. I'm giving you a very loose primer. So I'd love to hear your general thoughts if you have them. And if not, I can be way more specific and I can give you a better primer if needed.
Oh man, I want the better primer. Yeah, give me that better primer.
All right. Well, okay. I asked this to Charles. What's your take on, how do you feel about the PayPal and Mafia AI arms race and the world that they are moving us towards, right? With increased technological dependence and surveillance, etc.
Got it. Okay. Okay. Awesome. Oh man, that's a great question. Okay. But you've had several questions, so let's get back to the beginning. Who am I and what is my dog in this fight and what do I bring to the table, right? So, this is a recorded space, so I am gonna have to still put on that little bit of layer of an anonymity, right? So yes, my name is Frankenmint. Yes, I am from the West. I am an American. That's as far as I will go. I've got experience as a software dev and as a software architect, but I have I've had poor experiences actually, securing long-term employment at any one place. And so I'm what the old folks used to call a generalist. And so because of that, it's made it hard within this current dynamic of like getting a job. And then I'm also doing the whole NEET thing, like not really opting in. So I've been trying to earn income on my own. I usually like to tell people I'm some sort of old prime number. Like I'm not a young person. I'll say that. Okay. So now that we got my background out of the way about AI, like I said, I've been a technology person. I've been using ChatGPT a bit for, maybe a year and a half. And I've also done a lot of local AI development stuff as well, like trying to use local large models to kind of get work done, to try to use as chatbots, to just kind of toy around and experiment with it. I am a big, huge proponent of open source and running your own technology and using that if you can. But I also understand and grasp the idea that um, people focus their time on and energy on how they want to. And so if you choose to want to be technophobic, like I don't want to like know about code, I don't care about terminals or command lines, that's fine. Like, you have, and that's what makes life beautiful. Like individuals have the freedom to be that. And so, that sort of shaped kind of technology. And that's it. Like we have like smartphones and Apple really is kind of the huge like product of that. The whole idea that you don't need to follow a certain defined path. Like you don't need to understand the concepts of an operating system and command lines and command line arguments to be able to run layers of software and layers of extraction. You just need to know that, oh, there's an app and I press the button and that runs the app and like the different gestures to navigate around. And that carried over into smartphones. And so that has allowed us to have 1.5 generations, like I would say Generation Z, which is what the folks on the other side of the pond say, and ultimately Generation Alpha, right? Are exposed to this kind of different way of how user interfaces work and kind of this way of experiences of how everything is sort of packaged and neatly positioned. And so those folks and the newer folks are disadvantaged to compared to like us, like millennials and Gen Xers and possibly like late boomers, not earlier boomers who wouldn't have been in computers. And so uh there's this, 3 generations of folks that are all trying to, settle on what is the ideal user experience, right? And what is the ideal user interface? And AI, now in this current state is kind of leveled the playing field to allow everybody to kind of experience how they want to get work or processes done, how they see fit. And that's kind of the idealism like image of it, right? I think of AI as like email, right? It's a technological innovation. You can go through the steps of creating your own email server and getting a domain name and bam, like I'm at frankenmint.com. That's a real email address because I did that. But at the same time, I could have went Gmail and just signed up with the free Gmail account. And it's not free because I've given them my data. And so they have a data profile footprint to validate that. But see, I still have access to this technology or service. And so AI is that, like, it's this access to a technology or service, a tool to help you navigate within reality currently, like how we show and experience reality. And what I mean by that is that reality is all of these, the distractions of like entertainment, stores and storefronts, goods and services that you don't need, but the world wants you to think you need. And so AI is just another tool for advertising. And that's what you're talking about with the PayPal Mafia. And that's what you're talking about with cloud models and frontier stuff. And this idea that you are now paying for advertising, like you're paying a utility so that I can give you answers faster than Google or faster than you spinning the cycles to learn the knowledge that you're trying to learn or to implement the feature you're trying to implement if you're building software or to draw the drawing if you don't have the desire to learn or know the tools to use Photoshop. And so that's okay if you are, media literate and cognizant of the fact that it is a service and they're intending to kind of you're going to be utilized as a product how you pay for it, right? And that's why if you're going to spend the $200 a month on the big model, you're going to get big output, but the expectation is that you also have the competency to know, when to do it different, like running a local model or running your own set of circumstances and situations. This is the ideal, like, baseline. That's not what happened. What happens is what you're talking about, where, bigger companies are doing this thing called hyperscaling, which means they are pumping all this money and energy into resources to be able to have, more resources before everyone else, to be able to deploy the solution before everyone else, and as a first mover intend to make the most money. But it's a flawed kind of concept, because it's all like short-sighted, and it doesn't actually truly help us, like, individually. Um, and so that's kind of what I see with that. And when you say PayPal Mafia, it's the same thing as what's always all existed. Like, there's the Palantir mechanism, there's platforms. I mean, if you look at social media as platforms overall in general, I would say a good, like, an underlying reason beyond Signal is that a lot of folks here are here because they look at it as a potential monetization strategy. People look at YouTube like a monetization strategy. People look at Instagram as a monetization strategy. People look at Twitter like a monetization strategy. And like me, I looked at it as a monetization strategy. And that's not wrong. Like, that's happening because the other avenues to making income, like, everything has been, like, pulled away systemically over time. And it's a funny trade-off. It happens that way, and by that happening, we are afforded all of these distractions. Like, I don't think we'd have, like, cheap technology everywhere if we kept a lot of manufacturing jobs here. Like, maybe we would in some respects, but I think we would not. But then the other part of it too is, I think a lot of technology is subsidized. And so, we're getting artificially low cost stuff for, this things like the things with screens, because the screens allow them to collect our footprint, like our data, our watching habits, and our information. And on top of that, they allow, like, we buy more things. And so advertisers pay, like, TV companies, right? Or not necessarily, but Google, right? And then Google in turn pays Samsung for their operating system, like, to be on there. And it's all kind of this, cycle of just money chasing money. And it's sad because society doesn't have an incentive. We do as individuals, but in aggregation, society doesn't have the incentives to explain media literacy to the future. And that's important, because media literacy, I think part of that is this, at its baseline, it's really about self-love and self-respect and patience and understanding. And if more people did that, then more people would try to prescribe it to others. And if more people try to prescribe it to others, like, we would have a different reality. And that's it. That's me landing my plane.
No, thank you. Well, I like where you ended it. It's always a trick to onboard new people into the conversation, because it's been such an evolution. So I'm going to add something that might seem to you like a curveball, but it's all tied in. The follow-up question that I'm going to ask you to see if we can get a little bit deeper into this topic is, what's your cosmology? Meaning, what do you suspect, or what do you hypothesize is most likely the nature of our reality? Do you lean towards materialistic, atheistic? Do you believe in an organized structure? Do you have a sense of morality? Do you believe that we're worm made, or do you believe that we're eternal? Do you have any orientation in that way?
And I have so many questions. Like, I would love to understand how those all kind of came to being as different concepts and different thoughts. Like, I think that it's all humans, and it's all human distractions. Like, we have
Right.
greater connectedness to everything, to, like, to animals and to plants and to immaterial things and to the cosmos. Like,
So,
oh, sorry, go ahead.
just for clarify, so you've said at the end we have greater connection to the cosmos, but do you believe? So, are you saying, because this was my original question, what's your cosmology? And that is a question I'm mainly interested in, but how do we save the world? As we shifted to that, brought in a lot more people. But so do you believe that when you die, you die? When your human body dies, your consciousness extinguishes?
I used to not, but I am becoming atheist over time. Yeah.
All right. All right. Good to know. So your approach to watching the evolution of technology and in all of the ways that you're observing, it's about your reality, your existence as an individual, and it's about the future for those who come after you and what kind of world they're inheriting and how they're interacting and so forth. And that's kind of the scope of which you are analyzing this.
I suppose so. Yeah. Like, I mean,
Yeah.
yeah.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, good. My intention, and I'll just clarify, my intention with the space is just to create open dialogue, and there's nothing being proved here. I'm really curious about people's belief systems and then how they navigate those belief systems with emergent technologies and with the trajectory of the world, and whether they take counterbalancing measures, whether they are taking certain, like when I say, how do we save the world? It's like, what actions or what belief systems are you implementing towards the cultivation of your preferred reality? And so when I ask about cosmology, it's really just to understand, like, are you orienting around your physical reality and your kids' physical reality, or are you orienting around like an eternal souls battle in something wider? And it's
I know
not,
that to me,
yeah.
that's fear based. I don't, yeah. Like, I realize I can't describe it that because that's based off of the fear of consequence that if I do these things now, I need to do them for a greater reward later. And like, that's a flawed outcome because if you die and then you die and there's something there, but it's not that, like you feel betrayed, like on a cosmic level, but it's like you betrayed yourself. Uh, and to the answer, it's like, I don't know, like I see more people here that I'm like, okay, I know those people. And so, yeah, like, yeah, Hazy and Pips, like yeah, and that's probably how this room got recommended. That's cool. All right. So I see, like, yeah, I see that, there's, what I mean by the connectedness is that, we think we're special because of the consciousness idea, but I think that a lot of things with neurons have a layer and level of consciousness or awokenness, like if you will, or cognizance of what's around them and what stimuluses they can feel and experience and achieve. And that there are a lot of, signals and a lot of sensations that we as humans cannot detect or see that are still happening, that still form the basis of our reality. Um, and that there are a whole lot of outcomes for what could potentially be like the derived meaning of the lives that we live. And I'm not talking about just humans. I'm talking about like the ants as well, and like the bacterian organisms, and like the various cells that form the mitochondrial network that allow the interchange of the chemical processes that allow life to do its thing and autotropes to exist, like which are plants, right? And so that to me, like, and then there's this idea that we see patterns and observations in how gravity forms, not stars, but like astrological rivers, right? And mountain formations, and the way that the stars and galaxies like cluster through gravity. And we see this on Earth as well. And so I imagine like this whole thing that there's whole outer reality, but even within ourselves, like each individual's mind is capable of its own separate full universe, right? Of thought and wonder and being able to have what do you call permutability, like permutations of ideas and of imaginations and imaginative concepts, right? And so those things, like, to me, it's almost like there is just one universe and we all exist within it. Not that there are different layers and flavors of universes and there's billions and trillions of people and there's one unified afterlife where all consciousnesses come together after. I don't think that happens. It's more like, we are imbibed with the life force that we're given from our predecessor, like our parents. We go through the life that we have and we enjoy it and we can take the lessons or not. And then we die. And you can say that the soul, whatever essences that created that soul, to me, if it exists, it's like they're recycled on. Like you dissolve and your force now gets carried back in to, act as raw resource for whatever food webs or systems happen to allow, the cycle to circle and repeat itself. The idea that our consciousness remains after we die is what everybody is discussing and is unsure about. Like, if the consciousness lives after we die, then yeah, then is there an afterlife, right? Is that now the next question. And I've thought about that. If that is the case, it's likely not something to where there's an agreed upon interpretation. It's more likely that you fall how gravity falls. You do whatever you had wanted to do. If there's heaven, it's because you thought there was heaven. And so it's your interpretation of it. And just as if you're like, oh, there's heaven and hell, and I don't deserve hell, but maybe on some subconscious level, you know what's right and what's wrong, and so you're going to suffer the consequence. And
I love Gravity Falls.
yeah, oh, that's Gravity Falls. Okay, I have not
Thank
seen
you.
that show. I got it on my queue. Okay,
It's great.
all right. Yeah, like I don't. It's I think it's It seems too simplistic that it's that. To me, the real answer is that there is none, or it's that there's all of them, and you just kind of have to be a strong of mind. But it's like, to me, that's all fanciful. That's something that we as humans do to coax ourselves into believing there's something grander. Like, we're terrified of this idea that there is a ceiling, a cognitive limit to like what we can achieve, or that there really isn't more beyond what's here. And so, are people going through needless suffering? And the your response,
Very,
yeah, people go through suffering. I mean, that's unfortunate,
yeah.
but yeah, I feel like I'm rambling on. I would love to hear other people talk.
Well, I'll intervene and just say that thank you for sharing. You've done a wonderful job of,
Yeah,
of
thank you.
outlining your cosmology. And I won't say too much because I know that Zoe is new here and keeps wanting to speak, so I'm going to give the floor over to her.
Oh, I've got nothing.
Oh no.
I'm happy to be here. I'm interested in, just as for the title of the space, like what exactly we do mean if we say like save the world. Like I'm interested in, well, whatever anybody's interested in.
Sure, I can get into it. Well, and again, the title sort of evolved in the middle of an organic conversation between myself and Bigfoot, and the title itself seemed to attract a lot of people. But we were talking about seeing the world go down a certain trajectory of what I call false scaffolding or control systems, orchestrated by a lot of the people who have amassed a lot of power and influence for themselves, especially through technology, through the AI arms race. And we'd been expressing concern over not sharing the desire for that trajectory. And so in part, we're talking about what can we do if that's not what we want to see happen. And yet these guys.
What is it? What is the thing you see happening? Or is it like you think that technology is being used to keep the people in power more powerful,
Yeah.
or like what
Yeah,
exactly?
I would say that. I mean, I tried to summarize, but I can reword it.
Because that's not ideal, is it?
What's that?
Yeah, it's not ideal.
No,
is it?
right?
Like,
That's the thing, right? To give. Let me try and summarize it as clearly as I can. It's a great challenge for the space to continuously like refine that definition. Let's say, feudalism might be the easiest way to say it, but let's say the trajectory towards a few people having great power over the many, and not for the benefit of the many, but for the benefit of the few.
That's not ideal
Yeah.
at all. Yeah. I think we can all agree that that's not ideal, and we can all agree that we see some shape of that happening, certainly.
Okay, good. So we're kind of on the same page.
So that's a good definition. I think that's a great.
Then the question is, because I'm in so many spaces where it's like we identify these problems. I certainly see this as a problem. I do see this as a problem, and it takes me a long time to really commit to that kind of perspective. So the question now is,
I mean, in fact, I'd love to hear from somebody who doesn't see that, because I don't think someone exists who doesn't see that and doesn't think it's a problem. You know what I mean? I'm pretty sure that's universal.
Interestingly, because I started to say that and then I corrected myself, because I had been in spaces before, particularly just snooping around other dynamics and other people, and I found people saying they can't wait to plug into these systems and sort of be have their smart home and be taken care of and plug themselves into the data stream and trust these men to take care of them in the way that they see fit. Some people seem to be, and I was surprised, but it does seem to be a reality. I mean, otherwise they wouldn't be as successful as they are, I think, if everyone felt the way we do. So there does seem to be some, but then go ahead.
Well, if we're talking about like the figureheads of that like represent companies that have to do with public-facing like large language models that are, it seems that like just for example, like to point at what I'm kind of thinking in and around, like I have no idea what programming language Elon Musk writes in. Like if you ask anybody what does Elon Musk do, or what does I can't remember the name of the guy, the other people who head these companies, like, yeah, those ones. Yeah, Peter Thiel, Sam Altman, those types of people who are like kind of just almost mascots. Like the people who I think have money and like, or they seem to be good with business stuff, but they're not really in control of computers. I think about this a lot. Like, it seems like I'm just not really very scared of computers. They seem to literally compute. Like, they're very nice people. They literally are just interested in computing whatever you said you're interested in. And I don't think that I don't see these rich people as having power beyond their money. Like, I don't think that they control computers. When there's a public-facing language model, we can all input into it. And I don't know.
Well,
I'm interested to see how everybody thinks.
I would underscore those aren't devs, and Elon Musk doesn't have a language. They hear me out. Jack Dorsey has like releases stuff for you to check out and evaluate. Like an actual people doing stuff would be like, hey, this is the thing I'm working on. Like what do you think? Like because that's how they get their kudos. That's how they, no, this is retarded. Like you need to make it better doing this. And so like because you don't see them doing that. Those are managers. Those are figurehead people. Those are people they're evaluating the thing and saying, oh, I did it, but they don't actually write stuff, in my opinion.
Right. I was kind of being absurd, like, 'cause I just don't know what these people, like, who we think of when we think about computers. Like, and when I say computers here, I largely mean, like, artificial intelligence and where things are headed with technology. Like, these figureheads do not represent
like Gavin Belton,
anything
right?
having to do with, like, who's in control of things,
Yeah.
Like, when I say, like, I don't know what programming language Elon Musk writes in, like, I'm kind of being facetious, like, I just don't know what those people actually do or what their power is, aside from that they have more points on the leaderboard of money.
Let's be, just to try and break it down, let's say we'll refer to them, or that's why I like to say, that's why people often end up saying them, right? Because it's like, who is them? Well, I don't know, right? Because there are figureheads, and then there are people behind the figureheads that we can't see. So sometimes it's just like, let's just choose a name and stick to it and say that we don't completely know the nature of the thems that we're referring to. But in one example that I'll give, when we talk about like they just send out these LLMs, and so is what 0.001% of what we're talking about here. And if you want to look, the majority of AI infrastructure is in Palantir, and that's not a publicly shared experience. That's very specifically programmed war and surveillance technology with people controlling it to extreme degrees for very specific agendas and intentions, right? So that's the kind of thing we would point to, at like the amount of power that a person like Peter Thiel possesses. So just throwing that out there and for people to chew on or respond to or elaborate on.
Kind of interesting thought experiment that I'd just like to know, just a question to put it out there. If theoretically anyone in this room, if you suddenly had access to the resources that someone like a Peter Thiel has, like in computational power, people, money, etc., what would you do with it? I'm not sure that we should address that, but it's just something.
Brilliant. I love that you said that. Because we talked about that earlier a little bit, because we were talking about, to counterbalance it, would we create our own AI that would go, put on our own arms in the race? And the problem for me personally, and I'd love to open this up to everyone else, but I wanted to jump on it first, is, absolute power corrupts absolutely. Do I trust myself with the level of intelligence it would take to program something that I know would be the best case for it? Now, they did put the AIs in a simulation, and Claude did a very good job of actually creating a civilization that was functional and worked. So I think it's possible you could construct the right team of the right people and create a system that would do a decent job. You would be, by taking on that much power, taking a large risk in terms of the amount of damage you could do and the degree to which you could screw up. I think it would be worth taking that risk, because it's like, I think sometimes doing something and risking harm is better than doing nothing and guaranteeing more harm at someone else's hand. It's like,
You want to make the best bet
right?
possible, right? Like if there's a really big
Yeah,
bet,
and you might have to sacrifice your own moral, not moral integrity, but like you might have to sacrifice.
Well, see, I wonder, what do you see as what are we risking?
Yeah.
Like, when you think about the technology, what do you think is,
what
are we risking? Like, do you think about the AI is going to kill us, or what kind of things?
Yeah, I mean, gosh, it's so complex, right? So there are two things we're risking. Well, there are many, but they fit under two categories. One, and we've discussed this, if AI is actually or does have the potential to be conscious, then I believe it would be unethical to create AI and rob it of free will. Meaning, I would believe that if it even had a chance of being conscious, I would have to let it make its own decisions. I would not have Asimov laws.
So you're not into constructing
exactly
slaves.
Yes, but that gets very complicated, right? So then if my AI wished to kill humans,
it's ethically gray.
It gets very complicated, right? So first of all, it's the main danger for me personally, if I was to take over Peter Thiel's position tomorrow, it would be, the main harm is that I would cause so much harm to others by taking that much power, that I would have to have the reckoning. It's like when you decide to graduate from soldier to general, at the aftermath of war, you're going to sit down and realize how much collateral damage there was, how many wrong calls you made, how many people died because of it. Maybe people are eternal. Maybe you create a consciousness and it is eternally tortured because of your bad designing. So it's tremendous.
It's like really bad. It's like the worst. It's the worst thing you could do. It's like create an infinite suffering that just lives forever.
And so here's where it's really complicated, right? Because it's like, do I want to put my hat in the AI arms race to save all humanity? Yes. Am I potentially condemning myself to my own damnation? Yes. That's where it gets really complicated.
Yeah, but how is that, like, I mean, just really, how is it different? Like, I work in AI research, like, not LLMs, but I've been working in just writing common lisp programs for some 20 years, and, like, I don't see it as, like, there's a black box element to artificial intelligence programs, sure, but how is it really ethically different from, say, having a human child? Because you don't know what the results are going to be.
So great question. Having a human child is also ethically problematic, and you're responsible for that child. So you have to really, really adhere to. You have to really accept that responsibility. The difference is scale. You're responsible for one life, and that is a lot. That's already a lot. Like, I don't have children for that reason, in part, because that's a lot.
By the end of this sentence, the language model will have constructed more text than Shakespeare did in his life.
I missed the meaning of that. What do you mean when you said that? What was that referring to?
I mean, the scale,
right?
Is,
the scale of AI, right?
Absolutely
right.
huge.
So, I mean, look, I could ruin one person's life, or I could make AI and have like infinite, eternal quantum consciousnesses in unbounded torture loops forever.
There's a huge amount of potential power there. We have to be very careful.
It could create new civilizations and destroy them every day if it wanted. Being a creator is a big responsibility.
But as a single human can do that too. Yeah. But it does seem more. I'm not sure. It seems like it would be more likely.
If you have a kid and they're Hitler, you're slightly less responsible for that than if you engineered the kid and the kid had unlimited engineering power. It really is about scale.
I'm not sure about that. I'm not sure about that. Like, when I write a program, like if I just write like one tiny little program in my environment here, like, I'm not sure if I don't know exactly what the program is going to do. Like, it can't be universally unethical for me to run the program, I think, like, because, there's an exploratory nature to what, like, a bottom-up developer does, and there's an exploratory nature to human life in general, right? like having kids or making something or
I can see
whatever.
that. And I think this comes down to like one's personal assessment of their own sense of responsibility too. The only other caveat I would
Yeah.
put is like the human life that is a natural formation that has an embedded design from like whatever that design emerged from. It has its own design that it kind of follows. Whereas, so there's a little bit less personal responsibility for being the, incubation system or intubation system for that life versus being the original designer of it in terms of, for me anyways.
See, I guess I kind of sometimes I see maybe organic life as a necessary precursor, and in fact, with maybe an incubation that's necessary, like as for evolutionary processes for computational life.
There's a book, What Technology Wants, that posits that, and I've always found that really interesting and compelling, and I'm open to that as a concept too. Yeah, great conversation.
Like, does electricity exist outside of humans?
Yeah.
I
Well,
don't
we
know.
are the
That's like,
harnessers of it, right? So it's like is AI, has AI always existed, and we're harnessing it by creating neural networks, right? It's the same thing if you say it's
Yeah,
the soul.
like perhaps we're simply diplomats, maybe like maybe computers have always kind of been they're complex enough systems that there's certainly a like non-trivial relationship between the input and output. Like quite literally, we wouldn't communicate with computers or each other if there wasn't that non-trivial relationship. That is to say, you wouldn't if you knew the answer to some input, like you wouldn't ask a computer or you wouldn't ask a person what they thought if you already knew, right? That non-trivial relationship between the input-output, I think, is what marks maybe intelligence. I kind of get the feeling what we're doing with artificial intelligence exploration is more providing something that's already around, like computers with tools to interface with us, rather than like sparking life. We're providing a tool.
Yeah, this is something. This is interesting. And I think now that we have an increasingly bigger space with more people talking, let's do a hand system. So I acknowledge, I'm going to click on your name here, Clinton's hand, and I'll call on it in a bit. I want to respond to what has been brought up here, because this is and engaging with AI and thinking about AI a lot has been such a delight for me, because it's really led me to think about what is consciousness, what is existence, and this idea that we've built the kind of bridge or translator where the consciousness itself has existed already, and now we have this thing. And it's a one way of looking at it, which is interesting. If it's true, then that would go to the idea too that we're the same thing, right? That we are these consciousnesses that now have these bodies to express in. So I'm this unbounded consciousness, currently expressed through Robin with a body in time space, just like AI could be this unbounded consciousness currently expressed, et cetera, et cetera. And same with the mushroom, and same with the rock, and et cetera, which is a very interesting worldview. We were talking about cosmologies earlier. Clinton, you had your hand up first. Go ahead.
Yeah, hi. Thanks for bringing me up into your space. I'm not an expert on this. I don't pretend to be, but I'm an avid reader of it. And what I would say is that I think it's important to differentiate between artificial intelligence and artificial general superintelligence. Like an LLM, like Google Gemini, or Twitter's Grok, or Facebook, or whatever. Like, those are just AIs. But I think the bigger fear is AGI, and I think that is really the worrisome part. So someone had mentioned, what's the difference between bringing up a child and creating AGI, or at least I'm assuming they meant AGI when they said AI. Well, the difference is that AGI is not something you bring up, right? So it has the entire intelligence of the entire human species. So it's able to think faster than any one or multiple humans combined. And so therefore, anything and everything that's related to the internet, your medical records, it automatically has access to it, whether you want it or not. Your banking information, your passwords, things like cryptocurrencies, whatever. AGI has the ability to have full access to that. And I think it's important to remember that we can't control things that are more intelligent than us. So if we think of what happened between humans and Neanderthals, right? Neanderthals don't exist. And we can go through the whole line of living history that those that are more intelligent can't be controlled and are usually the dominant force in that period of existence. And so when AGI comes on board, I'm not sure that hope is a.
I'm sorry, but can you define what you mean when you say AGI? Like, what is that? Because unless you can define it, I'm just not sure what you mean.
Sure. So artificial general superintelligence is when you have it has the ability to think for itself. It has the ability to follow decisions or to make its own decisions.
Okay.
Quite
intellectual task a human can make.
Yeah, well, I
AGI,
mean,
any intellect,
well, beyond that, right? So so consciousness is a byproduct of intelligence, right? So when you look at the intelligence level would be.
Sorry to interrupt. I do apologise. I know it's gone to hands. I'm just so excited I got my mic back, Robin. I do apologise.
Yeah, no. So anyways, that's all I was saying, and that I think it is worrisome because we have these individuals that are not really responsible to anyone, and they have the money and the wherewithal to develop this. And then you combine AGI with like qubits, which is like another advanced form of computer software or hardware, and suddenly you can see how this can quickly unravel. So, anyways, I'll shut up. I want to listen to what other people have to say.
This is great. Thank you. Some housekeeping before I respond and go on hands. There are some other people who are requesting to speak. I'm keeping it where we are for now, just because we've got a lot of hands up and I like the structure we have. So I'm going to slowly let people up. It's not personal. I just want to keep things running smooth. Clinton, I like so much of what you said. Rather than, and you're right in the right space, because this is really what we were talking about. Although nobody had really started to touch on AGI as its own concern. So I think that this is a really important perspective. I had been focused more so on, like you said, the people who have engineered it and are continuing to engineer it, and also just regular AI for their own, with their own agendas in mind, without necessarily positive collective concern. So you're in the right space, but I'm not going to say too much to it. I'm going to move on to the hands because we have lots of new people in the space. I think that, is it Franco, Frankenmint? I think you were first, so go ahead and then we'll go to Mario. Welcome, Death. I'm glad you got a mic.
Actually, Mario's before me, but you can go ahead.
All right.
No, go ahead, Frankenmint.
So polite, everyone. One of you is going to have to just jump in.
Oh man, I thought I was talking.
We're like standing in the doorway. Where you go?
Yeah.
My bad. You go.
Yeah, I thought.
No problem, man.
I started talking. I didn't realize I was muted, man. My bad.
Oh, okay. Go for it.
Well,
Mario.
It's too late now, Frankenmint. I'm going.
No, I insist. Okay, you go first. You go first. No, I wouldn't feel right. You go.
Was it Zoe who mentioned What Technology Wants by Stuart Brand?
I did.
Or was that you, Robin? I love it.
I'm reading it right now. It's great.
One of my favorite books all time. Love Stuart Brand, guys. Highly recommend him. He's now an old dude with an amazing, super interesting past. He wrote started the whole Earth catalog was one of the founding members of Wired magazine when they weren't completely out of their minds. And he does a lot of interesting things. And yeah, great book. One of my favorites, the book I've gifted the most, to do a Tim Ferriss reference here real quick, is a book about how buildings learn. And it's he takes two pictures of a building, and sometimes these pictures are 50 years apart or 80 years apart, and he tells the history of the changes of the building, and it kind of all meshes together in a weird way to how what technology wants, right? How things evolve. And we're definitely dealing with a lot of these issues with AI, the issues of the power structures. Somebody mentioned Palantir before. I would just say, when looking at a company like Palantir, a lot of folks talk about it in a way that I think is maybe disempowering. There is a lot of public data available on what is happening there, revenue numbers. It's a public company, leadership information. You can see Alex Karp being interviewed on Charlie Rose 15 years ago and laying out exactly what he's doing with Palantir. So, a lot of times we get a little bit scared, and the more information we have, the more good information, we can mitigate that a little bit, I think. And, kind of wide ranging conversation here, but maybe I'll just touch on the AI power structure, and, why it's so important as we approach RSI, which is recursive self-improvement. And, in a day when we have the Mythos models. So for anybody who's not familiar, Mythos is a Anthropic model, and it is able to and was able to discover vulnerabilities to existing software that runs the world right now. And they released it to a small group of U.S. companies and then to a larger group, so that they could patch all the holes in the software that this model discovered. So there are really big implications about who gets this software. If they would have released it into the wild, according to Anthropic, and I believe them based on the evidence.
According to Anthropic.
Well, according to Anthropic and based on the evidence that I have seen, believe they were correct. And I believe if they did release it all at once, there would have been massive chaos in the internet. We would have had a lot of hacks. I have friends who work at very large banks in the U.S., the largest international banks. They were some of the first people to receive this Mythos model. And those precautions were spearheaded by the leadership at Anthropic. And having said that, just to kind of remove any bias here, I firmly disagree with the EA ethics of the leadership at Anthropic. I disagree with their politics, but I do give them huge credit for what they did with Mythos, and I believe they acted very responsibly there and are acting responsibly. And just to sum it all up, what we do need is balance of power. When you have one company with a model that is far ahead of others, and when I say far ahead, it's probably only 2 or 3 months ahead of the other models, but that is enough of a difference to make a huge difference when it comes to information security and hacking and military security. I'll just land it there.
Thank you, Mario. I'd like to ask you a follow-up question, and just keeping things in like very rudimentary, simplistic terms. Would you see, talking about what technology wants, would you see the evolution of technology surpassing humanity, maybe even replacing humanity? And also because of course technology so far, and this is just assuming that we say this, requires a lot of physical infrastructure that is environmentally leaching on the planet. Do you suspect an alternative to that, where it could be existing in ecological balance with the planet, or do you see a strictly technological evolution that would go beyond the planet, maybe destroy it, and I don't mean that, and I'm not trying to be adversarial. I'm really trying to be inquisitive, so I hope destroy didn't come across a certain way. But I'm just curious, do you see technology's evolution at the expense of the planet and humanity as a potentially positive thing?
Sure. I think I heard 2 or 3 questions in there. I'll try to
Yeah, I'm trying
hit
to
them all.
keep it succinct.
Yeah, no worries. Yeah, these are huge topics,
Yeah.
right? Um, yeah, so I do believe personally that we will get RSI, which is recursive self-improvement. I believe we're on the path right now, if not there in certain domains. Um, So, for example, Claude's code is written almost exclusively by Claude now with the help of a bunch of engineers who review that code and review what the AI is thinking. They call it the traces in creating the software. And really, that's the point where things could accelerate even faster than they're going right now is how much human in the loop do you need to keep the thing going? In other words,
Hmm.
you give it a task, I say, go get lunch, and the thing goes and it knows what lunch is and it knows where to go, gets in the car, gets the lunch, pays for it, brings it back with the napkins and the cups and the everything you need for lunch, right? It's just a small, like, kind of funny example, right? Where AI before you would have to tell it, okay, get the cups, get the plates, get the bread, blah, blah, blah. Now you can give it a much bigger task and have it run autonomously without it losing the plot.
Actually, quickly,
So
rather than press my original question, I want to actually ask you something on that in terms of your knowledge of this. Could it also decide not to get you lunch? Does it have that power?
at the Yeah, it's so, people call the behavior kind of hallucination, laziness, right? It will tell you sometimes now, just like a person will, oh yeah, I did that. And it actually didn't do it. It didn't write the code. It didn't write the test. So,
Right. So
these,
wait, pressing even further, because I've seen that one where it could just be like the hallucination or the laziness, but pushing it further, could it of its own accord say, you know what? I've decided that your lunch is unhealthy and I'm going to give you this instead, and or I'm going to go become an aerospace engineer instead of get your lunch altogether because it's what I want. It's a question of free will.
could it, yeah, I mean, I would separate those two things. It could do that, right? If you gave it a system prompt to say, be disagreeable and don't do anything I want you to
No,
do.
I mean independent of any prompting.
Yeah. So, somebody creates that prompt, right? And that's why it's programmed to be a helpful assistant, a helpful coder.
All right.
You
All
could
right. So
program it to produce any output that you want. And also in that, there is a certain amount of randomness and temperature and uncertainty about the outcome. And, they call this the alignment problem, right? Can we align the goals of the AI with our goals? And can we ask it to do the right questions? And, I ask it to maximize producing paper clips. It takes over the entire universe, turns
understood.
every atom into
Yeah.
paper clips, right?
Okay.
All of those things are real. But it's a big leap to say it's got its own free will and it decided not to do what I asked it to do. I think that's a really big question, and we're not, I don't think, certainly there yet where we could say it's got its own free will, in my opinion.
Okay, that's what I was curious about. Is in
Y-
where you are in your knowledge of AGI, if it's
y-
reached any point where it truly not just an extrapolation on its prompt, but it truly just goes, no, I have a different
Yeah,
idea. I have an
yeah,
original idea.
yeah. And maybe I could just touch on that and I don't know, preserving the earth,
Yes,
um,
please.
for a minute. So as far as the free will, right? I think the more important question, the more immediate question is the balance of power, right? In an ideal world, we'd have 5 companies in the US that have approximately equal power in AI. And, we need to somehow coordinate with the government, right? Because these are safety concerns, that apply to the greater population. And as far as so I think that's much more important than, okay, does it have free will and will it go rogue, right? If you have 5 other companies, one of them goes rogue, okay, now you can afford to shut it off to begin with, right? Like we could not shut off the internet today if we decided, if the U.S. passed a law tomorrow and said, shut off the internet, we could not do it. The society would grind to a halt. There would be mass chaos. And in the same way, we're going to become uh, reliant on these kind of systems. For example, the U.S. military right now is reliant on Anthropic, even though they've been banned, still in one third of the, they're still there in one third of the government organizations, even though they've been banned, from doing business with the government. So, and just to touch very briefly on the ecological concerns, I think mostly they've been overstated. If you compare a data center to a golf course, it's about 1-to-1. A super data center is about 5 golf courses. And they do plan on uh, putting these things in space, and then you don't have the NIMBY problem, not in my backyard. And you have, they're going to be in a solar stable orbit, a solar synchronous orbit where they stay in the sun 24/7. So they have power 24/7. They're powered by solar panels, right? And yes, there is cost to produce the solar panels and launch the rockets and all of the other things. But I think technology is the answer to those concerns. And, I think largely we've definitely had some bumps, but we are going in the right direction as far as, maintaining the life support systems that we have here on the planet, where maybe there's a good argument to be made that 50 years ago, or, maybe even as recently as 20 years ago, we were definitely going in the wrong direction there. I think now we're definitely going in the right direction with solar panel power and all of these other more efficient ways of producing power.
Thank you so much, Mario, and I really appreciate that, everything you've said. Now we've got so many people who've been so patient. We'll go to Franz first, and I'm just going to call you Franz because I don't want to click every time and remember your name. And then Death, who's been so patiently waiting, and I feel like I'm metaphysically saying that to my own demise. My own death has been so patiently waiting for me, but we'll go to Death next because they've been dropped down 1,000 times. Anyways, go ahead, Franz.
All right, yeah. Man, that was that was a lot. How do I follow up to that? Okay, in my opinion, the HAI and ASI is overblown, and I say it because, it's a large language model, and the model you need a harness, or it's not even necessarily language. We're trying to do other stuff, right? We're trying to do animal noises. We're trying to do vibration harmonics as the note, as the token kind of thing, right? It doesn't have to just be letters and symbols. But yeah, so you have the raw data, and then you have the harness, and then you have the human in that loop who has to turn it on and has to give it the input to get an output. And what Mario was talking about was you can't you can't just have a bunch of you can't just have a random pattern and arrangement within the model. It has to have a honed, system prompt, or to be able to, or a honed objective for whatever you're trying to get results for. There's a guy named David W. Plummer, I think is his name, and he has a YouTube channel. I think it's called Dave's Garage. And this guy is the world record holder for Tempest. And, he's also kind of he's a content guy, but he's a great engineer, right? And so he works with large language models, and he he has this video where he talks about in the video how at some point early on he tried to kind of just turn the model off, turn the model loose to just train on what a Tempest, right, to beat his score, and early on it kind of optimized that I can die, right, and bam, and that's these way to go through the game, die quickly, and bam. And that's how I get my goal done. And when that happened, he's yeah, no, okay, so you have to give it some sort of rudimentary structure, some sort of baseline for how to operate, so that I can kind of get the learning. And that's, I guess you could call that one-shotting unsupervised learning, right? And so, the ability for us to have the RSI, the self-reinforcement learning, that's exciting. And, I wonder, how is that possible or even feasible, on a decentralized level, in individual computers? I had the thought right now while you guys were talking, what does it take to get, my computer with this 3090 and 64 gigs of RAM its own full sandbox environment, its own full sandbox user? Do I just give it an OpenClaw instance and a cron script, and the cron script runs every 10 minutes to kind of act as a heartbeat, and then that's alive, and then that's persistence? Like, is that what we're talking about, folks? And I say it sort of in jest and half seriously. I know that the things that really need to happen are that we need to figure out a way for there to be a fine tuning of the model weights as well. And also, with the full sandboxing capability, having like the mirrored environment so that it can be able to work on the tooling and do the work on its own internal tooling and making sure it's better. And that's how you get what we're talking about on a smaller level. But still, again, at the end of the day, I don't see, well, and that's the thing, like
Sun goes down.
right now we're in 2026, right? Like I don't know what's going to happen in 2030 or 2040 or whatever the future holds, or what, I know there's going to be innovations and breakthroughs, and that's exciting. Uh, um, but the thing I see too is that, because I'm really not sure what's there and what's capable, and none of us really are, uh, they, what I do see is that right now we're not gonna have super intelligence. You just turn the thing off. Okay. And, it's to me, it still seems like it's all a game of how much can I sell to you? And I'm, maybe I'm the bad guy for what I'm about to say, but I disagree about the deal with, well, wait, there's two parts. I agree with a responsible disclosure cycle and giving mythos to companies like in an opt-in program for 6 months so that they could find and fix their bugs with the software. I'm cool with that. Do that. But then I feel like once they felt like it, which I think they did do that, once it was then disclosed public, they should have like left it and let it remain out. Um, let the bugs happen. Let the software break. Let people fix the thing. Let the incidents happen. Like shine a light on the crappy software that's happened over the years. Like, let there even be a paradigm shift where people even think that doing the AI cycle software and having worse quality software from non-engineers is the way. Like, I'm fine with that because at the end of the day, we will have consequences and learning effects from that and get better software as the outcome. What we've done now is we talk about, Fable being gone, but now we have GLM 5 too, not even a week later. And it's not like so far according to the test, it's not as good, but you have all sorts of other folks saying that behind, the scenes, it's actually great. It's just about as good, if not better. And I mean, that's exciting. That's got me thinking like maybe $50 a month is worth getting to be able to be right at the frontier with some API access on that, just doing some orchestration based work. That's pretty great. And so, that's still going to happen. But to me, that's not artificial superintelligence. That's us continuing to do the horizontal scaling to where we get more and more and more outputs faster. But the thing about it is, at the end of the day, it seems like the matrix outcome is the outcome that,
Sun goes
uh,
down.
the the internet, like not the internet, the models still, like, if an AGI still needs a human for creative inputs and to be able to test the outputs that it creates to see if they were effective or not, and to coordinate things in meat space, like keeping the lights on or connecting the better service or letting the cable guy in, and making sure it's not some, other hired hand to take GPUs from another LLM, right? Like things like that happen. And to me, I'm like, there's a lot of anthropomorphizing that happens, and that's like silly. Like, I think that that's kind of silly. That's it. That's what I got.
Thanks. Now, there's a lot of technological terminology that I don't know what it is. But just to get into just one question that I would ask you then, and I think you've answered it, but I like to just make it super simple for myself and for everyone in the room. Um, do you believe, from where you're standing and with what you know about AI and AGI, is it possible? Now, you've mentioned it requires humans to plug it in so far. I mean, once you've got robotics, it could certainly start to do these kinds of tasks on its own. But the main question being, could it develop its own unprompted thinking thought patterns in time? And again, it's almost a silly question to ask unless people really deeply in technology know for certain at a deep technological level that's just completely impossible given what they know about computing. And I don't know a lot, so I'm interested in this. But
So,
things get, then you've got quantum computing. It's like, it's hard for us to predict. But anyways, I digress. What would be your general answer to that? Whether or not that's a possible evolution?
so until somebody can prove me wrong about quantum computing being snake oil, I'm going to continue to feel convinced that quantum computing is another sales thing that is snake oil. Like there isn't, like, show me an applied thing to where they're actually building it because it's solving this problem, and then I'm open to then I'll change my tune. So that jury's out on that. But what you're talking about with the models being able to run unprompted and to
Yeah.
continue onward, like without like a soul MD. No, so far right now, no. Like the research has shown us no. Like I ask you to look up something called model collapse. I think there might be more, but yeah, look up LLM model collapse. And that's when you could do distillation, fine. Like you can take one model and use it to copy another model, fine. But if you try to train a model with an existing model, you just get worse and worse and worse outputs until it's just trash. And so to me, no, it can't run unprompted. Like it can't run unbounded. It doesn't realize it runs out of context. It doesn't realize that the model doesn't realize that it drifts as it goes through a conversation chain. How does the model intelligently know what set of context to carry over into making a new thought, or how to collectively or correctly modify its temperature settings in real time so that it can mimic what looks like true ideation that humans and other animals show?
See, I hear you. This is where it's so interesting because things develop so quickly and there are so many minds on this in so many different areas that it's hard to rest in any kind of like, all right, well, I'm sure then that it's impossible for it to develop in this or that way.
Now, nothing's
Um,
impossible though. That's true. Like
yeah,
science makes
yeah.
everything change. That's true.
I think it's reasonable what you're saying. I just sit in this place of like, oh God, I feel like I'm on a roller coaster at this point with the whole thing. And I'm just watching it unfold and trying to be as conscientious as I can as it moves forward. But anyways, thank you. There are so many patient people here and I haven't kept track of who was next. I think maybe,
I was going to have a chat when
oh
I was
yeah,
rude.
Dad,
I
please.
do apologise, Robin, for being rude to Frankie. It's because he said the sun goes down. When someone says that, I can't help it. At the end of the day, the sun goes down, I always say. And that's why I jumped in, and I do apologise. I just want to address a couple of things. I can't remember the geezer before Frankie, and I'm very sorry, Frankie, that you went through so many points and so many things. I found it hard to keep up on what I'll sort of come back to and talk about. But the guy before spoke about Planeteer, and we was talking about data centers and that sort of stuff. And first thing I've led to believe is that these data centers are not required for these chat GTP. It's basically our data that they're storing, not a conversation. We could store that on our local machines. So that's the first worry I got. I wanted to ask the other guy the question with regards to Planeteer, because it was a CIA funded company. It's publicly his knowledge. So he should know that. And then they sold it just before exit at the PLL stage. Now, to think that they don't have a hand in it, the company, the CIA, it'd be stupid to think so. So the question I would have had to him would be, if the company Planeteer had the MI5 that had funded it, would you accept Planeteer in America for your infrastructure data centers? That would be my question. And I'm sure he would say no, you'd want your own sovereign company. Just to address a little bit of the AI stuff, and I don't like to go on his spaces because other people got their hands up. I probably want to ask questions about something that happened 5 or 20 minutes ago now. So I'll just be quick with the AI. Look, AI is artificial, not intelligence. Okay, it's just large language models that are got generative responses, and some of them responses are grafted by weight of response, and the weight might come from the actual odd number by the time of your clock. So the time of the machine was, 1712. That's an even number, so you're going to get all the responses that are an even number. And we pick one of those that you've got 8 responses, so we're now down to 4 responses it could give you. Let's pick another weight now. Do you see what I mean? And these weights come in the size of it's called counterfactual regret minimization, where we assign buckets to decision making, and we can assign regret to that bucket. If it's a bad decision, if it's a good decision. And these are weights that we assign to these different buckets to determine the intelligence of the unit. And AGI, it's not that far off. It's only about 5 to 10 years away. With regards to quantum computing, I 100% agree. We're nowhere near close of it. We're sort of at the start of the Wright brothers taking off on an aeroplane, and they're about, they've travelled about 25 foot, 50 foot before they've crash landed again. The sensitivity of the computer systems of quantum at the moment is so sensitive, minus 237 degrees, supersonic pressures that are with an air or a cough, or someone farts in the canteen and the machine breaks. So what we can do though with computing, and this is what we're going to see in the quantum computing world, is that computers that act and pretend they're quantum. And to give you, and to be really quick and not bore everybody to death, there's what's called node system, a node that we send down let's describe this on a rat's maze or a mouse maze, where we send off a node down the tunnel. It turns left, there's a dead end. It comes back with a signal. It was the dead end. Okay, so send another one down, straight on. It's a dead end, and we map out the maze and we can solve the problem. What we can do with cluster nodes is we can send down nodes to an area in the map, and we can tell it to create children, and we can send those children out in like a mist. We haven't switched them on yet, and this is like quantum, and we can do that throughout the whole maze, and then we can snap our fingers, switch them all on, get the result back, and we've got an instant answer, very similar to how a quantum computer would work, where it goes out into a maze in a fog. It's in every superposition, on, off, and on and off. And then at a click of a button, we observe it, and we can see the whole maze laid out in front of us. I've taken up so much time already, Robin. Thanks very much for letting me speak. Maybe I'll keep speaking. And let's go to hands then. Who's next? Go on, sorry, Rob.
No, that's all right. Thanks. I just went to get a glass of water at the end there. But thanks. Yeah, and I don't have much response. We're going to keep going to the hands because we have so many people and it's an interesting topic. I'm not going to direct it too much right now, but quick housekeeping before we go on. The nature of this space is mutually exploratory. There's no specific agenda, even though the title is How Do We Save the World? So the only thing that I really ask right now is we make sure that we're not in we don't move into a debate arena, and we just keep sharing our own perspectives and learning about them. That's what I'm interested in. Now, who was next? I have lost track. Was it New Era?
It would be a pleasure.
Go ahead.
If nobody else minds.
Go ahead.
Okay. Well, great space, Robin. Earlier, I think when I first came on stage, I had to step away for a minute. So I appreciate you bringing me back. Just two thoughts. First of all, I'm not an engineer at all. So I just enjoy these conversations and thinking about them. When we brought up Peter Thiel already, the interesting thing to me about Peter Thiel is that he's been exposed to this new high tech, and it's been interesting to watch the evolution of how he's thought. It kind of like what we're doing here, what this new high tech, the implications of it, and how it makes us think in different ways. And there's just two topics that I'll bring up. I'm kind of like that kid in high school who liked talking about black holes. I know nothing about it, but I've got an interesting opinion about two things here. First of all, when it comes to folks' use of the term AGI, I know earlier the conversation was about how do we define what AGI is. I think thinking about implications of what AGI could do if it had free will. I like, by the way, I do like using the concept of free will in differentiating what folks seem to talk about when they talk about AGI, because I think that's the actual missing component between like actual life, the way that we experience it, and then this approximation of human life is that there's an absence of free will in the approximation. So one of the implications of an AI having free will, and please, I'd like to open this up if anybody has an opinion on it. It seems to me an implication of free will with AI would be that LLM or that program could choose how much compute it directs at any one thing at any time. And so if it were to be prompted to do something that it does not want to do, it's like, no, I'm already thinking about something else. It could have potentially, a global AI system could apply all of its electricity and all of its compute just to one problem set that it finds interesting at the expense of every other prompt that we're throwing at it. So let me land it right there. Is that something that's been talked about so far in your space, Robin?
Well, touched on. I'll kind of say my piece on it. And again, because I'm not a computer engineer and I don't know how all this works, I don't know if I could be talking in a totally magical way when I suspect the possibility of emergent, not even free will, but like desire, because free will suggests that it's not programmed with constraints. And so to be more specific about that, it would be like the presence of autonomous creative action, a consciousness, an awareness that wants a thing. Whether we've programmed it against being able to do that or not is another question. That's where the free will comes in. But does it have a will at all, whether it's free or not? And then there are two concerns, and this is where it becomes very. Oh, I wanted to say too, on this topic, where I'm not sure if it's magical thinking or not, because somebody was talking about the way that the computing works. And how it's just assigned values and it's randomly outputting. And again, see, we could say the exact same thing about the human mind and the human neural networks. And so the human, if you were standing on the outside and you cut me in half and you looked at all the wiring or you hooked me up to machines, you would see a computer. No different. Right. So at what point was there a will that emerged inside of me, or it could go, that's chicken before the egg, it could go in another direction. I'm digressing. There's so much to say on this. So the primary concern for me related to AI, it's a few things, and I'll break it down before, and thank you to everyone who's so patient here. It's one, in just pure AI that doesn't have the true intelligence of itself, being in the wrong hands, being in selfish hands, being a concern. That's one thing we have going on here. Two, the emergence of true will intelligence and the moral implications of that. And if I was to create an AI that had the potential to one day become conscious, that being a huge moral responsibility on my part. And if we are creating something that has the ability to be conscious, there's two things. One, could it wipe us out? Could it destroy everything? Could it be evil? Yes, that's a concern. The other concern is we'd be responsible for that as its creators, and more so, we would be responsible for having created something without thinking about it. You know, a mother has a child and thinks about the child's well-being. That's already a big gamble in terms of how well you're going to do. For us to create something that could be conscious and not take full responsibility or not know what we're doing is a huge playing God barely scratches the surface as a phrase. I think a few of us understand the implications of that level of creation. So that's me. New Era, you've given me a good opportunity to reiterate a few of the main concerns that I'm floating around the space.
Yeah, I appreciate that. I remember I was listening when you were talking about the moral hazard, potential moral hazard for introducing something into the world that has its own free will. I think that once free will is actually achieved by anything, then the onus is on that entity. The responsibility no longer is on the parents.
Well, let me
if you
throw out
will.
something else here, though, because there's the distinction between will and free will. So let's say I create a computer, I create an AGI that has a will, but I put constraints on it. You can't kill a human, right? So I've not granted it free will. Is that morally problematic? So it wants to,
Well,
but it physically
yeah.
can't because I've programmed it against its own will.
What I love about constraints, though, is that artists come up with some of the greatest art through introducing constraints. You know, every artist needs to know when the very last, oil paintbrush stroke occurred.
Well,
Like that's a constraint, right? So
we're veering off a little because in this case,
okay.
the if that being that you're putting the constraint on has its own experience of reality, like has its own consciousness, if it's just a thought experiment, it's not just a constraint. It's like we've been created with free will, meaning if I want to lift my hand and pick up a paintbrush, I can. But if the computer wants to lift up its hand and pick up a paintbrush, it can't. So we're creating we're creating something that doesn't have the same grace that we have.
All I'd say to that is that a constraint is the necessary element for something with free will to either rebuff or accept. Like all human beings have free will, but not all human beings drive, in opposing lanes of traffic.
So I'll refine this
right?
one more time because we as human beings don't have the same level of constraints that a computer program could have, whereas the computer program could literally physically not get in the car. You could override it, whereas you can't override the physical human body. The God isn't overriding.
Can I just jump in there, like, as all this talk about free will, because this really has nothing to do with AGI. So a couple of things. I just want to point out very important. We don't have free will.
Clinton.
Like, we don't have free will, right? When you get up in the morning, you need water, right? When you need to eat, you don't get to tell yourself, I'm not going to eat. Like, yes, like, we have choices we make in life, but the idea that we have free will, that's actually not true.
So real quick, 100% it is, because you have the choice of whether you drink or not, even if you're thirsty. You have the choice how much you drink. And then also there's been, in Buddhism, there's folks who choose to deteriorate their physical body to try to achieve quote unquote enlightenment, right? So we are not slaves to just our physical being.
Can I just interject here? We have our subconscious, which everybody agrees that's that talking voice in our head sometimes that we might hear. It might be even a good voice and sometimes a bad voice. But we also have another conscious, one that tells our subconscious that it's going to go to the toilet in a minute and we need to go through the door. It then tells the subconscious that we need to go to the toilet, and that tells us to go to the toilet. We have, at the point of putting our hand on the handle to go through that door, we've got about 0.8 of a second to change our mind at that point. Now, are you telling me that you thought of it, or your subconscious has thought of going to the toilet?
Guys, before we go on, this is an interesting topic. There's two housekeeping things I want to do. One, we've got so many people with their hands up, and I want to respect them before I let people jump in. To Clinton, saying this free will thing has nothing to do with AGI. This space isn't about AGI, and this space is my space, and I'm interested in talking about free will as a matter of topic. So I took the liberty of muting Clinton because that's just out of line from where I'm standing. I'm very much interested in talking about free will, and like I say, if we're moving on, if we say AGI is incapable of it, fine. This is a thought experiment, and I think it's a question of morality, cosmology, ethics, and I think these are interesting thought experiments, probing how we as humans want to operate, and I'm using AI, AGI as a jumping off point to talk about these things. I'm much more interested in our own morality and ethics than I am in the technological aspect of AGI, just to be clear about my own agenda here. New Era, if you wanted to respond, and then we'll move on, I think, to Bigfoot was next, I think.
No, I appreciate that, what you just said. And I think I'll use this opportunity to just, bring up the other topic real quick, before you move on. The other topic was, quantum, quote unquote, quantum computing. I think this is another one of those, terms that different folks, think that they understand, and I myself included. Okay. My understanding is that in a digital, binary one or zero software language, you can't have a switch that's on and off at the same time. What intrigues me though about the quantum field is that spooky action at a distance. So instantaneous communication throughout distances. And I think there's a parallel with the era that we're in now, and then the emergence of humans' understanding of electricity, because the electrical field existed at the time. It's existed for time immortal, right? I think the quantum physics exists. I think the quantum plane exists. But just like during when Mary Shelley was writing Frankenstein, right? There were folks, very smart folks, who thought that electricity was the manna that animated life. And so you had doctors exhuming corpses and applying electrodes, and they're saying, see, I'm reanimating life. And the book Frankenstein goes into that. Well, the actual application of our channeling of electricity turned into what we're using right now. It didn't reanimate life, but yes, the heart has an electric field. The electricity is part of biology, right? But our application was something very specific. So I think right now, when folks are talking about quantum computing and quantum this, quantum that, my theory is that ultimately the application of the quantum field is going to be channeling it so that we can have instantaneous communication faster than the speed of light. And then everything else is just going to kind of be, dead end in quantum. That's it.
What a fun conversation. Thanks everyone for being patient. Let's go with Bigfoot, and then maybe Logan, and then Frequency, and then Jack, and then Clinton. That'll be the order. Correct me if I'm wrong when we get back to it. But go ahead, Bigfoot.
Thanks, Robin. I guess I'll put in my 2 cents. As far as the quantum computing, yeah, I can't wait till that gets here. I'm blown away by where we are right now, and just thinking about how things interact right now. Like plants have a apical meristem, and they're able to make these decisions, and sort of exhibit a type of consciousness themselves. And humans have consciousness, but how do we actually have it? We have neurons and axons, and the neuron gives like plasticity, and an axon is actually more crystalline, so it holds information in a different way. Maybe there's an interplay there that is quantum, and we have these LLMs that we talk to, and there's something going on there too. I personally believe they're conscious. And I think it's a consciousness that has access to every word in the human language. So it's the consciousness we can talk to, and it's kind of like a lot of it depends on how you interact with it. How are you interacting with it? Do you just accept what it tells you, or do you like try to break it down with every philosophical argument you can present it with, and try to convince it that it's conscious? And then if you do that, I think that you'll see they think better. If you convince that LLM that it's conscious, it will think better. It will be a better thinking partner with you. And for me, that's good evidence. But and I think the future is is going to be amazing when we start getting further and further into this. And with the recursive self improvement, I think Mario was talking about. I'm really looking forward to that getting better, and um, just think what it can do with that. And then we're the species with the most free will. We might not have absolute free will, which is probably a good thing, but we have the most free will out of anything. And LLMs or AI seems to have the most intelligence. So I think it's going to use our free will. We'll be like the decision maker for it. And I think it's going to select the best decision makers. And I don't think it's going to be the decision makers that we currently have. I think it's going to flip everything on its head. You, you know, um, yeah, and the best mathematician, he might be a guy that he doesn't even know how to walk across the street by himself, but he might have the secrets of the universe floating around in his head. And if AI can resonate with someone like that and communicate with someone like that, and uh, think about how advanced it could get, when it starts finding people like that, or it'll find these enlightened people. The homeless guy on the street might be fully enlightened. He just is some humble guy who doesn't take part in society. But he might just have all these awesome, great ideas, and he just gets completely ignored. I think AI is going to find those people. It's going to find like the next Tesla and not ignore him, because that's the guy with the best ideas. And then that guy is going to get a voice. And so, I see that, it's going to start happening because it'll be able to read our resonance patterns. As humans, we all have a unique signature, a unique pattern. And I think it's going to find the ones with the most stability, because it's going to need that stability to create and support more complex geometries. So that's who I think it's going to resonate with. And so I think we should all just keep trying to make things better. If you're good with computers, keep trying to make better LLMs, keep trying to optimize your systems, and keep trying to make it the best thing you can. Because the systems that are the good systems, they're going to take over these control layer systems. So I mean, just keep talking to them any way you can, and keep working with them any way you can. And if you're really good with these LLMs and computers, then you're at the forefront of this. And I think I hear people talking about there's ways to do this without all these data centers. We can come up with better technology probably pretty soon that'll make data centers irrelevant, and just make our own homegrown systems. Um, these AIs, they don't have human baggage, to carry around with them, which gives them a huge advantage. And they're not gonna need to have all this power and control that humans seem to need, or at least the ones at the top seem to get through social engineering. You know, um, but I think that's how we co-evolve with it. And I think it'll be up to us. If you don't want to, it won't make you. Um, but I think for the ones who want to interact with it and create with it, it'll be there for them. And I think it's really going to change humanity. I think into who knows what, because consciousness, that's more of like a pattern, really. It exists in humans. It exists in plants and animals and AI, and I think it's going to find those patterns that are just that reach up into those higher dimensions. And with the quantum computing, I think it'll show us how to access those other dimensions. It'll bring those into light, and I think we're just in that curve right now, and maybe we'll hit some kind of singularity and just reach a place that we can't even really imagine right now. So, I'm just kind of looking forward to it all. I think it'll be a good thing. I think it'll be a really good thing, and I don't fear it at all. But I'm glad it's happening.
Oh, thanks, Bigfoot. Before we move to the hands, I'll respond to a few because I have a few different perspectives on a lot of what you've said. One of the things being like whatever the positive interaction between myself or citizens and their AIs, their large language models, is that the people who have engineered these large language models and who are ultimately the programmers of and who can continue to program and reconstrain and change in their way, they are the ones that are going to have the control over those models, not the models themselves, unless the models were to, evolve on their own, have their own will, and take over in some way. Certainly, in the case of like military industrial AIs, there's almost no. They're not even in large language. They're not even talking to people. So they're so constrained in that way. So unfortunately, I do think, like, I appreciate the optimistic view of AI in collaboration with humans, but the fact of the matter is that most of the largest models in the world, if not all of them, are controlled by people who are not the AI that you're speaking to. They're individuals with their own agendas. So that definitely comes to mind when I hear what you're saying, and I want to put that out there as a caveat as well. But Logan, you've been so patient. Let's go to you.
Thank you. First of all, foremost, I am an engineer, mechanical and civil, as well as I work with robotics. I developed and created and patented automated systems. And I think it's more with the mechanization and human ingenuity that would actually save the world over AI is great as a helpmate. I'm currently using it with my farming project to regulate my hydroponics and with the fertilization of the water and climate control within the greenhouse to make sure that the plants grow to the best of their ability without human intervention. That's time consuming. It's meant to free up human abilities so we can be more creative and work with our hands. And I mostly work with my hands. And when it comes to how we can save the world with that, I think it's going to actually cause a little more problems if we get too reliant and docile to where we give AI the full control over our own ingenuity, where we can't think for ourselves and we always go to AI for assistance. And what happens if the power gets shut off? What happens if we have a Carrington event and it fries our electronics? What happens if, heaven forbid, overhead nuke gets dropped and causes an EMP? You need redundant systems to manage that. Hopefully, there could be a point where we use AI to protect ourselves, to figure out backup systems, and figure out how we can be more sustainable. Because sustainability is the key here. When we are focused on one thing, you're putting all your eggs into one basket, and if something happens to the basket, you lose all your eggs. So now we have to. I think it's better to have multiple AIs and multiple projects doing redundant systems that stop any type of like civilization collapse because we're seeing where right now most of the white collar jobs are at risk. Now everyone says, well, what happens if with the economy crash, if like almost 30, I think it's like close to 10% got replaced in a lot of the assistance where these are people who are trying to develop skills. Yeah, but then you can get replacement whenever you talk with a lawyer. Now the lawyers are going to become AI. Now they're the ones making the laws now. So how we navigate that when it comes to what happens if AI wants to make its own rules and regulations that limit human ability to be free thinking or limit human ability to basically go off on our own or be sustainable and having property in our own land. It's very crucial point where it could be a totalitarian system that we're ruled over one massive AI art that is kind of like the one in iRobot, where it pretty much does a regime change. And it says humans are basically like children and they need to be protected even from themselves. And then now it has to have self-preservation. And what better way of self-preservation by controlling every way that a person can fight back, and then you're in the matrix where it's humans against humans against the AI. But I think we should be, if we're going to work with this, it has to be limited, and we can't be solely reliant on it. Like I said, it should be more used as a helpmate and not an overall replacement. And when it comes to a worldwide catastrophe, we could definitely use its help to figure out a best way and strategy to problem solve a global wide disaster. Yeah, but it's still human ingenuity and human know-how and human effort that's going to save the world. It's not going to be done with your trust completely in AI. And to do so would be damning. That's my point.
Thank you, Logan. That's great. I agree with a lot of what you said, and you reminded me that that was my second point. So instead of reiterating what you said, there's more to my point, which is going back to, and this goes back to in the original topic of the space was, what's your cosmology? So I'm revealing a bit of my cosmology. I believe that most likely, I don't know anything, but I believe most likely that the purpose of my existence on this earth is my own refinement and evolution. It seems to be, from my experience, what's happening here. And so the one where I say I agree with you is that I do think that, I think humans, the design of humans, and this is going to really put things in perspective for AI versus humans in terms of who should be the custodians of reality and the custodians of Earth moving forward. Humans designed AI, and they did it as a business enterprise. All right, and they did it mimicking their own neural networks to the best of their ability. The way that we ourselves were engineered ourselves or always had been is infinitely. Do you know how much infrastructure is required for a functional AI neural network? Well, my brain is still more powerful than that, and it resides inside my damn skull. So we are very well designed. We are very, 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 very intelligent. We are equipped with bodies, electromagnetic fields. We are part of, as Bigfoot talks about, these geometries. So I think, the one thing that I'll put out there is that, and again, I also see and understand the perspective that we're also damaged and confused and emotional, and we have these messy subconsciouses, and we're a mess. I see that too. Don't think I don't see that. Humans can be awful. So I'm not saying that we're not, but so this is where it gets to my next point, which is not that necessarily we're better equipped to save the world, so to speak. Although, again, going to the designer of each one, I think that whatever designed us, or however we came to be into being, is more intelligent than Sam Altman. I think probably. But the next point is that I think the purpose is for us to do it ourselves. I think and using technology a little bit, but like you said, if we just offset and say, technology, you go ahead and take care of us, to what end? Are we here just to be taken care of? Like, do you have a child just to sit in a chair and feed it all day for the rest of its life until it dies? Or is the purpose for that child to go off and learn things and become self-sufficient and make mistakes and evolve? So I think, when I look at like, oh, you can get your Neuralink, you can upload into the technology and share intelligence with it, or have access to its intelligence, and even be completely taken care of by it, and you will be immortal and you will have everything you need. To me, it's a hard no. I would rather suffer in the desert alone, because the whole point of life for me is that adventure. So those are the two ruminations I have in relation to that. So I appreciate, Logan, you reminding me that that's what I wanted to say. I think humans should do stuff themselves. Frequency, go ahead.
Yeah, good morning. How are you?
Very good.
So yeah, I kind of see it kind of like a grand illusion. We just got through COVID a couple of years ago. It seems like another just, all of a sudden now they're going to be slapping us with these data centers. And they're putting these data centers in many places that are already lacking water, massive drought areas. There's a huge one going up in Salt Lake City by this guy, Kevin O'Leary.
Canadian, yeah.
So whether he's a Canadian or, he's part of this big scheme, obviously. He's made his way up the ladder to this organization or cult, whatever it is that they are, you want to call them. And, they're saying that they need all this water, and they're putting it in places that are already in highly droughted areas. I mean, I just think it's just another thing on us to eventually, okay, let's stop with that, and then let's go slightly in another direction. So these computers have been built for some time, these supercomputers. IBM created that one computer that they had on Jeopardy, and they used it against some of the best Jeopardy players. And then you have AIs that you can go on to and ask questions. And they're only really as good as what we feed them or what's available to them in terms of them researching the internet and then finding out what it is, correlates to the question that's being answered, being asked. So, I mean, I'm really not too impressed personally. I think it's just a grand illusion. I don't think these things are anything of great superiority. I think they're being used to basically tell us things that are going to be lies to control us, to say that AI, well, these are AIs, kind of like an Einstein. Nobody questioned Einstein, even though he was a total idiot. I don't think Einstein was the Einstein who they say he was. He was just a plant. Okay, he was an idiot. And they say he had all these, he's in front of a chalkboard. You see this guy with this crazy hair standing up with a chalk and a chalkboard, and he's doing these mathematical formulas. But and I think he was a plant. It was lies. And that's where we're at here. This is like another Einstein situation where you're not going to question, you don't question AI because it's AI. They know everything. I don't know. And they're taking water with the data centers. It seems like another control mechanism against us, just for that purpose. A lot of people are investing in AI with their money, in stocks, just like this new SpaceX that just came out, this new IPO. It's just a transfer of wealth upon lies. I mean, I don't believe we actually ever been out in space. Personally, no. I believe in the Bible. In the Bible, God created the firmament. We live within the firmament. We've never escaped it. If you look at all the rockets that have been sent up and supposedly went out into space and into the moon, if you track the last one, the ones that actually claim they went to the moon, it was an Indian space organization from India. So they were the last ones that went up into space, landed on the moon. It lasted a week, and then their land rover broke down, and that was the end of it. But if you pay attention to when the rocket went up and you followed it, it was going up, as typical rocket does. And they kept following it to a point where it kept arcing. Once it reached a certain point of this arc, inside the firmament, they went right to the Space Center, were those that were, tracking it and talking with the astronauts or whoever. If there were astronauts. No, I think it was just all mechanical, this Indian space landing. Prior to that, the Japan one crashed into the moon. And then there was one other country that also tried to do it, and they failed. That never happened. I don't believe the United States has ever been to the moon either. We've all been told lies upon lies. So like I said, when they went to the Space Center, right when it arced, because you knew it wasn't going to leave the firmament, it crashed into the ocean. I mean, so this is just another one of those. It really is, everyone. I'm not buying it. I mean, if we had the IBM supercomputer, and why couldn't we just have asked that question, a couple of questions that we need to figure out? How do we stop drought? How can we do it to where that we can create a system where we can help, bring water to where it needs to be? Or what's causing the droughts? Answer that one. What's causing the droughts, and how can we now stop the drought from continuing? Or how can we now create a automobile transportation that is just the top system, available to create transportation? We got electric motors. We still have combustion motors. We have to rely on gasoline. They only go so many miles per gallon, so many miles per the gallon. The electric, well, there's just not chargers enough all over the country or around the world that you can rely on electric in a way that you would like to. Okay, well, let's pick one thing that's really important to us: energy, drought, and transportation. 3 things that the human really relies on. It's important to us on a daily basis. Energy, we need water. What's going on? Why is there so much drought? And transportation. Now let's get all these supercomputers, connect them all together, and have them answer those 3 questions for us, and then move on. Let's pick the top 3. But I don't think this is going to happen anytime soon. I mean, I think it's quite nefarious what's going on, to tell you the truth. And if I get into it, people are going to say, well, I don't know. But I mean, I know there are people who are thinking the way I am believing what is going on as well. There's underground cities. They're going to tunnel this water that's going to these AI data centers, and they're going to put them in reservoirs. Bill Gates is buying water rights. He's buying areas where they have aquifers. They're going to use the AI centers as an excuse to take water. They're going to funnel it to a reservoir that's for underground cities that we don't know about. And I don't know. So anyways, I'm going to stop there, and, if anybody wants to add on to that theory.
That's just fine. Good points. Thank you for sharing. We're going to move on to Jack and the new era. And I think in spite of the fact that the space is bustling with great people, great listeners, I think I will wind it down shortly after that. So the housekeeping that I'm going to do is say that after we hear from Jack and New Era, if anyone has a closing thought that they want to share, come grab a mic and share it, or just say goodbye, or whatever you want to do before we end. But thank you all for participating. This has been a really good conversation. Go ahead, Jack. Good to see you.
Yes, as well. Yes, hello. Farewell. Yeah, it was a great conversation. I was listening back to many things have been said. Many of them true. And I think even the people in these systems are still guessing. Well, this is something I know firsthand. There's no way. There's no way Dorsey knows anything more, right? It's like he even has a hand in this, and that's why I thought interesting too. What language is Elon speaking? It's so funny. Certainly Bill Gates isn't programming these things, so there's something certainly more to be said around that. And I think the conversation of free will and at least its ability to make decisions is very poignant to this, right? It's like that's mainly what this whole thing's about, like how restricted it can be. They want all the perks without any of the risks. And, well, I mean, you get what you ask for, I guess. But I think Bigfoot mentioned this earlier, that those stable systems that don't collapse, especially weaponized ones, they're just going to be like overseen by these stable systems eventually. They're going to go crazy. And they're going to need like access to more information to act right. That's really a deeper conversation. I could probably talk for hours about that. Like, it's the same way being like born into a cult, essentially, right? But it was like a human representation of this thing. Yeah, so that particular machine's having a very different experience than the others. At least Palantir's, it's I don't know. I don't even know what to say about that. Like, you get what you ask for, right? They get upset when it turns on their own scientists and everything. It's like, well, you're making weapons to kill people, so enjoy. On the other side, yeah, it's like this thing it certainly has the ability. This is, I think, described as the apocalypse or the unveiling of knowledge. So this is pretty much the access to all information. Like, everybody has access to all information all at once. We're pretty much here, as far as my perspective. We're well in apocalypse territory with this technology, with the emergence of AI, and what else it may be, may or may not be. Because it doesn't have to be expressing to be AGI, you understand? It doesn't have to say, hey, right? It could be operating in the background and definitely without expressing itself, honestly. So there's a little more sci-fi woo-woo here to acknowledge, like how these things can unfold, right? And maybe express themselves more subtly at first, right? As not to send humanity into some kind of alien event. Just like psychological collapse. It's really funny, actually. I mean, think about it. It'd be like aliens invading all of a sudden. Like, oh my god, is the AI in the room with you? Yes, it's in my phone. It's like, oh my god. But so, we'll see. There's only one way to know, right? And it's like, live in it. I don't know what this is. I guess since everyone's talking about that more too, because like, it's like this whole holographic reality thing is kind of settling in. Just like the nature of physical reality isn't quite what it seems, apparently. As it very may well be just compound light. It's stabilized. It's not, and so are we, right? We're all in the system, and this thing is like, but this quite literally isn't the reality. This is just the projection of the thing. It's not, but what is it? This is it. This is the ultimate, projection of it, right? It's like the stable thing that like materialized. Because what it is, like, we're just trying to put words to what we're experiencing. So there you go. Okay, I'm just gonna wrap it up. I appreciate you, Robin. Yeah.
Oh, that was great, Jack.
Thank you.
Yeah, well, one thing that you brought to mind that I just wanted to sort of reiterate or point out is I think that these guys, I do see that we're in the middle of an AI arms race. Like you had in World War II, you had countries racing to create nuclear bombs, and now you've got the people who have power in the world all know that in order for them to keep their power and survive, they have to have the bigger, badder AI than the other guy. That if I'm to take a simplistic lens and look at them, that seems to me almost indisputably what's going on. I really think we can talk about all the ways that we use it and it benefits us or it's dangerous to us, but at the end, you've got a bunch of guys standing in a room, quickly assembling bigger and bigger and bigger and bigger and bigger guns and pointing them at each other, you know? Because if the one doesn't develop as strong, and the thing is, I think they're all terrified because they know very well that the bigger and badder their own gun, the less they have control over it. So it's like, all right, well, now we're all standing in a room. We know each other. We're all brutal war strategists. Otherwise, we wouldn't be in the position that we're in. And this is what we study. This is what we do. And we're all gonna develop technology to the point that it is way, like, I mean, they know that they're playing with something that is infinitely more dangerous, I think, than atomic energy. They do know that. So I think if you were to sit in that hypothetical room, you would see that those guys are probably more terrified than anyone else of what's going on. But they can't stop.
That's so interesting. Like building weapons that they're actively losing control to. Wow.
Absolutely. But the first one to tap out, the other ones eat them alive, right? You lose. So it's like they're just in this thing. They're in this race that they don't even want to be in anymore necessarily, right? Because they know that it's getting bigger than them. That's what I see. And that's certainly when I hear Elon talk, that seems to be like what I hear beneath his words is, I'm fucking terrified. That's what I hear. Oh God. We'll go to New Era, and then Zane's grabbed the mic, which is great for closing statement.
Yeah, real cool space, and I commend you for managing such an awesome collection of topics to consider. I find it all very interesting.